K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. Mark your calendar for May 21st through the 23rd for the Southern Republican Leadership Conference in Oklahoma City. K98 Talk's Rick Robinson and Grouchy from the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show will be there to cover each day's events. Join them at the conference to hear keynote Republican speakers. Now, here's Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin.
On behalf of the Oklahoma Republican Party and the entire Southern Republican Leadership Conference Committee, welcome to Oklahoma City, ranked by the National Geographic as one of the must-see places in the world in 2015. I'm Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, and the road to win back the White House begins in Oklahoma City with a Southern Republican Leadership Conference. Your participation in this historic conference is crucial to the conservative cause and energizing America. The 2016 presidential election promises to be the most important election in our lifetime, and the choices that we make in the next 2 years will define America for the next generation. We're excited to host you in Oklahoma as we begin our shared Republican journey towards capturing the White House and getting this country back on track.
Don't miss this opportunity to hear well-known leaders from the Republican Party as they discuss the upcoming presidential race for 2016. And where they stand on issues facing America today. It starts May 21st and runs through the 23rd. To register, go online to okgop.com or contact the Oklahoma Republican Party. Seats are going fast, so register today. The Internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get set again.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election debts to those on the take. Attorney General's lying even while
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
Well, good evening, folks. It is Wednesday. It is May 13th, 2015, just a few minutes after 6 p.m. at the America Off the Rails normal start time. Now, I'm sure some of you probably noticed the new bumper. Sorry, there's some news. I can't go into too much of it, but let's just say there has been a bit of a shakeup in the world of internet radio. And yours truly was positioned in a way that I have been able to become the landing spot for what appears to be quite a few new shows. So we'll have some announcements coming soon. The ones that I can tell you for sure, because they've already announced and confirmed, are JD and Scott's Fire are coming to K98Talk.com. They actually plan on airing their first show with us on Sunday. Now, to commemorate the fact that they're with us now, they're actually going to be joining me tomorrow on a special episode of America Off the Rails, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But there are also some other things. For those of you that like America Off the Rails, and you've been pulling for me because I get emails from you guys all the time, and Twitter messages and everything else, I just want to let you know some of what's been going on. So because right now some of this isn't public knowledge yet, America Off the Rails has now been picked up and is considered nationally syndicated. It is now part of AMFM247.com. It is now also, through that affiliation, available now in seven low-power markets. I'm not going to list them all on the air, mainly because I don't have them in front of me. But if you have access to a computer, you can always go find my Facebook and friend me, and you can see the information there. Or you can follow me on Twitter. There's actually a graphic from the Facebook page that lists all of the frequencies. So if you're in any of the areas where you can actually hear us, that should start this coming Monday. For the next few weeks, it will definitely only be one day a week. So basically what I'm going to do is pick my favorite episode of the week for the first few weeks and send it over as a Monday episode. So definitely want to give a shout out to the folks over at AMFM247.com. It is an honor to be part of that group. Also, we are currently in negotiations with Leading Edge Radio Network. Several of our shows are being looked at to be picked up and syndicated over there. This one actually being another one of them. So I just want to give a shout out to those folks. Stryker over at Leading Edge. So far, we have spent a few minutes talking here and there, getting to know one another, and it is. It seems like this could be the start of something pretty big. Speaking of big, like I said, I can't say too much, but a certain internet radio station or broadcast company or whatever they want to call themselves, because honestly, here's the thing. K98talk.com is patterned after an AM radio station. So there are times when I get confused because I have the Spark Radio Network and I have K98talk.com, which is kind of like a station but not a station because it's worldwide access. So it's confusing to me. But I like the feel of it, and I like the fact that it's kind of become neutral territory. Because, when you're dealing with a specific network, everybody has to be a part of that network. K98 Talk has kind of become neutral territory. Where, yeah, you can go somewhere and you can hear the other shows that a network might offer, but we tend to try to find the best ones that are available and make sure that you can hear them all here. And that will continue to be the goal here. That being said, our space may be filling up quite rapidly, and I will get into more about that when I can. But for those, pardon me, for those of you following me on Twitter, you already know some of it because JD and Scott's Fire made the announcement last night that they'll be coming over here, so you can probably read between the lines. That, and of course, my bumper wasn't that subtle, but I mean, I'm not one of those guys, but I've been building this for a while. And the fact that it's starting to be a place where everybody wants to come do what they love to do, that means a lot to me. So for all of you that are here with us now, not too much is going to be changing. Some of you may have the option to move if you choose. And we will start working on getting the schedule lined out as we start adding new content coming soon, starting, of course, with the frontrunners from War, JD and Scott's Fire, who will be not only with me tomorrow night as guest host. It's up to them. They can hang out for all of it. They can hang out for part of it. That is entirely up to them, but they will also, hopefully, be doing their first live broadcast here over on K98 Talk on Sunday. But I'll give you a chance to get to know them a little bit better tomorrow night, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have them on. Now that all that's out of the way, see, that's like almost 10 minutes of the show just to explain all the things that have been going on for the last week. And we haven't even touched on the Southern Republican Leadership Conference yet, which is, by the way, coming up here in just a little over a week. And yours truly and Grouchy will be there. I will be there for 2 days of it. Grouchy will be there for all 3. We do plan on bringing you as much live content from there as possible. Again, as a reminder, if you have any questions you would like us to ask the potential front runners that will be there, make sure that you get them to either myself or Grouchy. You can do that at _R_OKC or at Ricky@thesparkradionetwork.com. Or you can shoot them over to Grouchy. I'm sure you know his Twitter handle. Sadly, it's escaping me for the moment. which unfortunately means his email address is too, because I think it's set up exactly the same way. I think it might be TCC_Grouchy at thesparkradionetwork.com. But anyway, I'm not entirely sure on that. But if you follow him on Twitter, just hit him up. Let him know what you want us to ask. We will find a way to get it done. Now, this is new territory for us, because we've mainly been focusing on expanding and making sure the content's gotten to the point where we could start getting involved in things like this. And now that we're there, we don't plan on going anywhere. So we're going to start trying to make sure that we're at any of these that are available, even if it means that I myself may not be able to attend some of them. We now have enough hosts spread out across the country that I'm pretty sure we could be in any event we wanted, at least well represented. So for all of you who have tuned in from the beginning, and some of you know who you are, who have been pulling for me, have been talking to me behind the scenes, have encouraged all of us when there were times when we were just like, yeah, I don't know. You know, it's all finally starting to come together, and it's all because of you guys. So I just want to take a second and say thank you very much. It is an honor. I know some of you have sent me emails telling me that as far as you are concerned, I am the voice to some of you who don't feel like, or for some of you that don't feel like you have one. And I want to continue to build upon that now that we are starting to become more well known. So feel free to continue to message me, talk to me on Facebook, email me, whatever you need to do to get a hold of me. And actually, starting next week, we will probably go back to opening the phone lines again. I do self-produce, so I cannot have a call screener. So it should be fun, because I'll just be like, hey, caller last four, blah, 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 you're on the air. And then if it's somebody crazy, we hang up on them. If not, we keep on rolling. So we'll leave that up to you guys. And it may not be, actually, we may start planning on that sometime after the beginning of next month. But now that all of that is out of the way, and I have talked my way through 12 minutes of the show, there's some things going on here in my home state that I kind of feel like we need to talk about. And then we'll get to the national stuff. There's recently been a big dust-up in the Norman area. For those of you not familiar with Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, which is basically the city that the town that I live in is a suburb of, is basically right smack dab in the center of the state of Oklahoma. Norman is a town where, of course, the OU Sooners are, and you'll have to forgive me, I have a co-host who hangs out with me, and she's getting rather excited because I think the missus just brought some food home. So, yeah. But anyway, so what I was saying was, Norman is about 15 minutes south of Oklahoma City. And you'll have to bear with me. I guess I'm going to take a break just a couple minutes early just so I can let her get herself situated here.
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em.
So let me be clear. You didn't build that.
Everything he's done is clean as a whistle. He's never not only broken any law, he's never done anything wrong. He's the perfect father, the perfect husband, the perfect American.
Hey y'all, this is Sam Janney, or the Bunny as many of you know me by, your friendly neighborhood bad girl of conservatism. Here to talk to you about my show. I'll talk about conservative issues, my top 10 douchebags of the week, and have some pretty badass conservative guests on the show. All that, plus me, your resident bunny with a chainsaw.
Wednesday nights will never be the same. It's Unapologetically Bunny. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on K98 Talk.
For our own cause, we got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political correctness will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom, bless you, pray to Jesus Christ. The press is in our pockets, cause there's no...
All right, right, folks, we're back. We're live. This is America Off the Rails. Got the pooch situated. Hey, don't give me that look. Like you wouldn't work from home if you could find a way to get it done. Just stop glaring. All right. So anyway, back to where we were before I had to take the impromptu break. Norman is about 15, maybe 20 minutes south of Oklahoma City. It is where the, of course, the OU Sooners and the University of Oklahoma are housed. There was a recent event there where the folks that were actually setting up the event had rented a public park, and they were telling folks that wanted to bring their concealed weapons that they were not going to be allowed to do so. So, of course, one of the reddest states in the country, big on gun rights. There's a Second Amendment group around these parts that basically said, oh, not only no, but hell no. You can't tell us we're not going to bring our guns. And honestly, it's true. I mean, even if you take a weapon into an area that's posted no weapons, the most they can do is charge you with trespassing as long as you're lawfully carrying. So the issue is they were basically searching people, or the plan was to search people before they were allowed into the park to make sure they weren't carrying weapons, which is a violation of the Second Amendment. So, that being said, there was a recent legislative session that is still going on where some folks had decided to put together what I can only classify as the antithesis bills of one another. There was one where they were trying to say, you know, we needed stricter gun controls. I don't have the numbers in front of me for the moment. And then the other one, which is the one that I want to focus on right now, because this is the one that really pissed me off, was the one where basically the legislature here wanted it basically to become legal for folks, you know, that were going to be in public places, even when those public places were being rented out by third-party entities, to still be able to exercise their First Amendment rights. Well, what had happened was the governor, Miss Mary Phelan, as I like to call her, and not because I like to mispronounce her name, but because she fails a lot. And yes, I'm a conservative, and I still don't much care for her. I've had some issues with her for quite some time. I actually did not vote for her. I threw my vote away just in protest because I knew it wasn't going to matter, so I voted for the Libertarian guy. Yes, I voted for you. I don't remember. No, it wasn't Dax. Or was it Dax? No, it wasn't. No, actually, I'm sorry. Somebody's going to kill me over this one. I actually didn't even vote for the Libertarian guy. I just threw the vote in for the other guy, the Democrat, because I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I could not vote for Mary Fallon over the issues with Common Core and everything else that have been creeping up over the last few years. The state testing issues. Now we have this, where basically, and you know, I haven't looked into it. I probably will, and I'll talk more about it maybe on Monday's show. But basically, she vetoed it. She vetoed it while she said, basically in her statement that, you know, they usually give a statement that explains why they vetoed something. She says it would be unconstitutional, according to the state of Oklahoma's constitution, for her to sign a bill into law that is currently being adjudicated in the court system. This may or may not be true, because I just found out that she had vetoed it last night, and, yeah. Show Research and I have not been getting along very well for the last few days because my GM hat has been, or programming director hat, sorry. Not that there's, honestly, there's like not much distinction between the two, but there's another guy that technically has the program, or the title of general manager, so yeah, whatever. The guy's a real douche, you're saying. Just play it, man. I'm going to get an email tomorrow. Did you really just call me a douche on the air? Yes, as a matter of fact, I did. But we're friends, so you know it was meant out of love. All right, so anyway, that being said, Mary Fallon's at it again. She may have a valid stance here as to why she couldn't sign it, but if that was the excuse, granted, that's the category I'm putting it in right now. If that were the excuse, maybe she should have, explained in the veto statement, this is something that I support. However, due to the fact that there is currently legal action taking place over this issue, which there is, because the folks in Norman filed suit, and the owners of the businesses countersued, and yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, big nightmare. Anyway, that being said, she basically said, yeah, I think I'm going to drop back and punt. So, she did. She said, nope, I'm going to veto it, and this is why. So now what I hope is going to happen, and I will get the information together to make sure that I give this out over the air for the next few weeks for those of you in the Oklahoma area. There is a number that you can call to blow up your representative's phone line and tell them that you think this is something that should happen. This is exactly what you should be doing. Because, okay, look, I'm just going to be completely honest here. I believe there should be some regulation as far as, I'm not like the whole Arizona thing where, yeah, if you're like 16 and you can scratch your... Never mind. But you should be able to carry a gun. There should be some requirement. Because, you want them to at least make sure that they know that which end they need to point in the right direction. You don't want them trying to shoot it gangbanger style, because that's dangerous to both them and the people that are standing around them, especially if they have a weapon that ejects cartridges. But you don't want to basically just take and use the Second Amendment as a floor mat, and that's basically what's been happening lately. The Second Amendment is the whipping boy of the Constitution. The Second Amendment is the one that everybody wishes wasn't there. It's like the redheaded stepchild of the 10th Amendment, or the Bill of Rights. Yes, first 10 amendments are the Bill of Rights. Yes, that's why I almost said of the 10 amendments, but I might as well just say Bill of Rights. But that being said, the Second Amendment has become the whipping boy of the Bill of Rights, because, there's all this misconception about it. Everybody thinks, well, no, Second Amendment shouldn't apply, because, who needs to hunt nowadays? Because, you can just go to the store. I mean, come on. Who in their right mind thinks that the Second Amendment really has anything at all to do with hunting? I mean, granted, it's a nice extension of it. I myself am not an avid hunter, but most of my family is. I see Facebook posts all the time of turkeys and ducks and deer that have met their maker at the hands of my cousins. And my dad used to hunt quite a bit when I was a kid. And I'm not opposed to it. I just, myself... see, here's my thing. I'm just gonna be real for a second. My dad, when I was a kid, when he and my mom divorced, he moved out to the country with his sister and her husband and their children and my grandmother, because they had this big acreage, and they put two houses out there. So my dad and my grandma stayed in one, and my aunt and uncle and their kids stayed in another, and there was like maybe an acre and a half between them, so it was like they weren't even really neighbors. But anyway, so long story short, they had these bunny rabbits. Yes, you're about to know where I'm going with this. They had these bunny rabbits, and I spent all summer feeding these bunny rabbits, petting these bunny rabbits, playing with the bunny rabbits, and one night we ate what I was told was chicken. So 3 or 4 bites into this chicken, was like, Dad, this is really stringy. What is going... I mean, first of all, they always tell you everything that you eat that you've never eaten before is supposed to taste like chicken. Rabbit does not taste like chicken. It really does not taste like chicken. What it tastes like, I've only had it once, but what it tastes like is, it's kind of like it was weird, because it was like really, really stringy when you bit into it. And I'm like, Dad, what did you do to this chicken? So I'm 3 bites in, right? And I've got this mouthful of rabbit, and I'm looking at my dad. I'm like maybe, 12? So, of course, at that age, you still talk with your mouth full, because it annoys your parents. So I'm like, hey, Dad, what's going on with this chicken? It's really stringy. Then my dad looks at me, and without skipping a beat, says, you just ate Fluffy. Fluffy was my favorite bunny that I nurtured all summer, and I had to eat her. From that point forward, I really couldn't bring myself to kill any other animals. because every time I thought about it, I saw Fluffy. Yes, I know. I'm glad Grouchy's not here right now. He's probably listening, and I'm sure one of the first things he's probably going to say tonight is that during the convention, because we're actually going to be in the same place at the same time, I think he's going to try to yank my man card. I'm just saying. All right. So, but yeah, so anyway, you know, anybody who thinks that the Second Amendment is about hunting, please do some research. It has nothing to do with hunting. The Second Amendment is the one thing that we have left that might manage to keep us free should things keep going the way they're going. And actually, we'll probably talk about that a little bit more tomorrow because, as I said, tomorrow will be a special Thursday episode of America Off the Rails. And because it is National Law Enforcement Week, who knew? I haven't, honestly, I'm just going to be real here again for a second. I haven't heard anybody talk about that, which surprises me, especially here in the state of Oklahoma, because we're all like, woo, pro-military, pro-law enforcement. I have not heard one mention, one, of it being National Law Enforcement Week. So tomorrow will be a very special episode of America Off the Rails, not only because I am joined by two of our newest hosts and some of the two of the nicest people I've met, actually. I mean, you know, that list is growing. I mean, Bunny's like way up there. She's like awesome. She's amazing. She's been friends since day one. She was one of the first talk show host types as I first started delving into this stuff a couple years back that actually started following me on Twitter and talking to me, and then we got to know each other. Well, JD and Stacy really weren't too far behind her. And that's mainly because, you know, at one point, Stacy was listed as the HR director for war. So I started following her because there were all these good things I was hearing about war. And I'm like, hey, Wayne, I have this show. It's over here. And you never responded. So if you're wondering why I'm having a little bit of fun at his expense, I know it makes me a bad person. I'll repent tomorrow. I can't help it. Do you know, we've been trying to get this thing going for years, and now all of a sudden everything finally feels like it's heading in the right direction. And again, I'm not trying to make fun of it, not trying to make light of it or anything else, and I'm not laughing hysterically at someone else's pain, but I am enjoying the fact that things are finally starting to come together. I hope they continue to come together, and if they do so, it will only be because of folks like you who tune in every day, who contact us and let us know what it is you like, what it is you don't like, things like that. Now, it is about time for us to take the actual scheduled break, which I will probably go ahead and do because it is about the bottom of the hour here. And, you know, since we are going to start marketing soon, since a lot of our shows are an hour long, we probably will start taking 2 breaks. Hey, you know, I'm a capitalist, so sue me. At some point, I want to be able to monetize this stuff. Not only because it would make me happy, but because it means we could improve the things that we're bringing to you on a daily basis and actually start investing things to make things better. With all of the stuff that we've had going on and everything that's been falling into place, I'm actually eyeing the potential of TV soon. I don't think I myself will be on it, but I might allow other folks to be there. And yes, I know, there's been ugly people on TV before, but I don't want to be that guy. I don't even like what I look like in pictures, which is why I do radio. But that being said, there are a lot of other things in the works. Some of them I still can't really talk to you about, but thanks to all of you who every day do tune in and make both K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network the successes they're becoming. And again, for my loyal America Off the Rails folks, you know, we've got to come up with a name for you guys. I tried it once, and it just didn't work because it just sounded dirty. So we have got to figure out what to call you loyal listeners. Maybe I'll put that out on Twitter, see if we can come up with something cool to call you guys. Because I've got this hardcore group that no matter what is always here. I mean, granted, a lot of you listen on podcast and you email me later. You're like, man, I'm sorry I missed it live, but I caught it on iHeart, man. You rock. I'm like, okay. Really would like to start seeing more live numbers. Just kidding. Actually, I don't care how you guys listen to me. I just enjoy the fact that you're listening. All right, so that being said, it is time for us to go ahead and take the regularly scheduled break, we will be right back here in just a couple seconds with America Off the Rails. I am your host, Rick Robinson, and we will finish up here in just a moment.
Political correctness will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom, bless you, pray to Jesus Christ. The press is in our pockets cause there's no longer free. You cannot make a move now that the NSA can see. Don't expect equality, respect, or fair play. The IRS will target those who vote the wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the place.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
Hey everybody, this is Jason, host of According to Me. I'd like to invite you to check out my show. It's a 2-hour show that lasts 60 minutes and...
Listen, I hate to interrupt, but one thing I can do is read off a script. Just say, let me be clear a lot. It works.
President Obama, I can handle this. It's a radio promo. I'm not green. I've done this before.
Did someone say green?
Now, Al Gore is here. Listen, I'm just trying to record a radio promo. Do you mind?
Now, do you say good things about me on the show?
No, not at all. But if it makes you feel any better, I rip on Republicans just as much.
The AM radio frequencies give off very high levels of radiation.
Look, my show is on the internet, which you invented. Can I just do my promo?
I got a pen. I can veto that, you know.
I know you got a pen. It's not a law. It's a radio promo. Listen, just listen to my show. Barack Obama and Al Gore hate it, so you're going to love it.
Here's an executive order. Don't listen to his show. He doesn't like me. He's racist. And he doesn't recycle either.
That's it. I'm done. It's According to Me, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on K98 Talk.
The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rails. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
Of Waxit Studio in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I'm here to talk to you about a skincare product called Theramedics. Theramedics has a wonderful line of products from anti-aging to hyperpigmentations all the way to acne. In fact, everyone at some point in our life is affected by acne. Acne can cause a great deal of embarrassment and anxiety, and in order to prevent and help other people, I have tapped into this wonderful product called Theramedics. Visit my website at www.prettyskindeep.com. Again, that's www.prettyskindeep.com.
Alright folks, we're back, we're live. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Now I do want to spend the last few minutes of the show talking about what of course has been blowing up all over Twitter all night and all day. That is the recent Amtrak situation. And the fact that the left has, as usual, become a pack of raving lunatics who are suddenly now wanting to blame the Republicans because of the Amtrak crash. And then, can I just say this? There's this thing called timing, and this goes out to Josh Earnest, I think is his name. I don't know. Everybody makes fun of his name, so half the time I can't remember what his actual name is because Scott Spire calls him like Joshing Earnestly. So I'm thinking it's Josh Earnest, the new White House press secretary, otherwise known as Obama's new kicking dog because, he's, well, go out there and tell them that I didn't know anything until I saw it on the news. And yes, I know, I'm not Jason. I can't do an Obama impression, so sue me. Now, that being said, he actually started trying to make a case today for high-speed rail right after a train wreck. I mean, really? Are you kidding me? So there's a national tragedy at this point because, a train derails, lots of folks on it, people injured, people dead, and this is the reason we need high-speed rail. Whoever wrote your talking points for you today, I hope you beat them because they deserve it. Because somebody wanted to make you look like a jackass, and it worked. Granted, you do a good enough job of that on your own, but it's really bad when even the folks that are writing things for you are like, hey, I wonder what'll happen if we tell them to say this. I mean, come on, it's like this. I mean, come on, are the same folks that are writing for Josh Earnest, are they the ones that write for the president's teleprompter? Or, maybe that recent speech that Michelle Obama gave, the one that basically said, this country's great unless you're black. I mean, what the hell? What is up with this entire administration? They have, like, the zero tact. No filter. And, a few hours from a train wreck, and you're like, yeah, we need that there high-speed rail. Because my boss told me I should tell you that we need that there high-speed rail. I mean, dude, you might as well have had the Forrest Gump accent when you said what you said, because no matter how eloquently you say it, you still sound like life is like a box of chocolates. I mean, come on. Why would you say that? And not only that, what is up with the left all over Twitter and all over social media all day today? Well, it's the Republicans' fault because they want to cut infrastructure spending, blah, 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 blah. Dude, the dude driving the train, the engineer, yeah, he lawyered up. That should tell you something. Like 5 minutes out, he said 2 words, maybe 3. I think an exact quote, and just kidding because I hadn't actually seen one. But the closest thing to an exact quote would probably be "Not my fault. I want an attorney." So that's what he did. So he's lawyered up, and now the National Transportation Safety Board is looking into the train wreck, and apparently what they are able to determine is the train was going too fast. So, let's recap. Train crashes because it's going too fast. Josh Earnest comes out and tells the American people we need high-speed rail. WTF? I mean, for real. What were you thinking? Did somebody honestly think that this would be the time that we could say, hey, this would be a perfect time for us to expand our train situation? Were you smoking crack when you came up with that idea? Because, I mean, come on. What the hell? And then you've got the MSNBC. I don't even know the dude's name. Because, I have this thing, and I'll do this usually at night or when I'm trying to prep for a show. I have a deal on Uverse that lets me see all of the news channels all at once, and I'll kind of scroll through and see which ones you got the most animated guy on it, listen to a few minutes of it. So, I mean, I'm usually bouncing between channels if I'm not searching news on the internet. Yes, I know. I'm a news and politics junkie. I built a radio station and a network. How long did it take you to figure that out? Okay, so anyway, there's this dude just completely going nuts last night, and every other word was trying to make people angry at the train company. And then he'd open his mouth, and the next thing he would come out would usually be something derogatory about the Republicans. When people are involved in an accident, can we not, especially a large-scale accident, can we not set politics aside for 5 damn seconds? Just 5 seconds. And say, we as a nation mourn for you, and then, oh, never mind, you're a Republican. I mean, come on, it's no. I mean, I hate to backtrack, but this triggered something that I remember, and it was hilarious because it was just like the Bruce Jenner situation. Interview. Everybody's all like, "Oh, it's so awesome. He's gonna be who he always should have been, and he's telling the world how he feels." What did he just say? Did he say he's a Republican? Did he really just say that? Never mind. Turn that off. I hope he burns in hell. Damn Republican. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, train wreck? Blame the Republicans. Blame the Republicans. Blame the Republicans. Blame the Republicans. And nobody's even talking about the fact that at this point, Obama's own party is like, what are you doing? I mean, seriously. He's like got this whole trade thing trying to get, and they're like, that's not gonna happen. We can't do that. And he's like, but vote for my bill. And they're like, I mean, even his own party at this point is not letting him do the things that he wants to do. And where's the media on that one? Anybody saying anything about it? Anybody heard anything about it? Because I haven't heard very much. I've heard it from the usual places. Conservative folks that are pointing out and saying, hey, even his party thinks he's a dumbass. So why are you on us? I mean, if even his party, the party that wants socialism, the party that is like all over the place about Elizabeth Warren is like, no, I know, yeah, see, he's almost done, and he's really a lot more of a dumbass than we thought he was going to be, so we're just going to, just move along, nothing to see here, move along, this is not the trade agreement you are looking for. I mean, come on, what the hell? Seriously, can we just be serious for just 5 seconds and realize what a mess we are in? We have the press secretary for the President of the United States of America talking about the fact that we need high-speed rail the morning after a train wreck. A very bad train wreck. I mean, it wasn't like a tanker flipped over and caught fire in the middle of a field and burned a few cows. We're talking an actual Amtrak passenger train derailed. It was bad enough I honestly thought about, for the short term, maybe even changing the name of my show. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? The country is off the rails, so if they don't like it, I don't care. But even I was like, I don't know about the name of the show for the moment. And Josh earnestly is like, well, you see, we need high-speed rail. And then, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I know at this point we probably have a few newer listeners because the news is coming out about us being picked up everywhere. So if you missed this bit that I'm about to talk about, you can actually go back and listen to that show in its entirety. It is the most recent one other than today's, which actually, for those of you who are looking for me on my normal RSS feed, you're probably not finding me right now. We do like 4 hours of shows back to back on Wednesday nights, so it's just easier for me to run everything under a single feed and then edit later. So if you found me, hang out. We'll be here for another probably about maybe 15-ish, and then we'll be running some breaks while we gear up to bring Grouchy in, and then we will be ready for the Bunny after him, and then DeWilkins. I do believe last I talked to Jason that I was to be producing him tonight and contributing a little bit, but we will see if he still wants to do that. Now, that being said, if you're looking for me in the usual places, don't worry. If you found me, you can hang out with me for a few more minutes. If you're hearing this and it's a podcast, then ultimately you still found it anyway. But for the moment, we are live, and I'm not in my usual place. Now, that being said, what I'm about to say, I've kind of gone over a little bit in the last episode, and I got myself sidetracked, and now I don't remember what I was going to say. The joys of live radio, ladies and gentlemen. Meltdown live on the air. Okay, so anyway, what I was going to say, hang on a second, let me look at something, because it'll probably trigger it for me, because I know where I was going, and then I lost it. I don't understand what happened, man. Train of thought, yeah, no, not gonna do that either. I have this other saying that I say quite often when I can't remember what I wanted to say, and it would have been a Josh Ernest moment, so we're not gonna go there. This is why I like the shows that have, like, co-hosts with me, because when I am like, no. That must have been further back than I thought. Oh yeah, I remember what it was now. I was on the Obama tear. But yeah, some of this I've already talked about before. And, you know, recently, and Michelle Obama was actually at a commencement speech for a university in Tuskegee.
Have you heard the news? There's
I've
more
got
to
a
Prime
commercial
than
trying
free.
to play. Bear with me for a
2-day
moment.
shipping on shoes.
Nobody cares about 2-day shipping. You're not a sponsor. Go away. Anyway, sorry about that. So, that being said, Michelle Obama has been quoted as saying some crazy things. Things like, this is for the first time I'm proud to be an American, or I'm proud of my country. And other crazy things like the recent speech in Tuskegee. Now, the reason I bring this up is because, you know, there's even now some conservatives who seem like they're really starting to jump the shark. And I will admit, Bill Riley has always been more of a centrist. I'm afraid he might be sliding in the wrong direction. And I only say that because, again, recently, he was all over the person who set up the free speech event in Texas. Basically was saying, well, you know, if you didn't do this thing, none of this stuff would have happened. No, if those people weren't homicidal maniacs, none of this stuff would have happened. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not somebody drew a cartoon. And you draw the parallel, then you go backwards to the Super Bowl, where he finally landed his interview with the president, and shortly thereafter is quoted as saying the following: I do believe the president is a patriot. I like him as a person, and I think he's doing what he thinks is best for the country. Bill, where have you been for the last 7-ish years? And have you not been paying attention? He's a patriot? Let's look at the number of ways he's not a patriot. Let's look at the number of ways that he's not, even in my opinion, a devout Christian. And yes, I'm probably going to get some hate mail. I don't care. There are Christians being murdered around the world right now. Is the president even offering to do anything? No. There are Muslims that are running rampant and just doing crazy crap. And every time they do something that's completely crazy, the first thing this administration does is not blame the terrorist. In the most recent instance in Texas, it was the event organizer's fault, because if she hadn't organized that event, there wouldn't have been crazy Muslims trying to shoot people, and there wouldn't have been cops that had to shoot the crazy Muslims. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. What type of world do we live in now, where a governor in one of the reddest states in the union vetoes a bill about concealed carry, while at the same time we have the president of the United States who basically comes out and says, let me be clear, this would not have happened if it weren't for the actions of the event organizer. And no, I know he never actually said those exact words, but he might as well have. He might as well have. And there are plenty of people that have said those exact same things to her, the event organizer. They've said, you probably shouldn't have done that. And I have to admit, for about 5 minutes, I kind of went there too. I'm just going to be real. For about 5 minutes, I went there too, because I was thinking, you got to deal with the fact that that sometimes there are going to be people that they're not going to like what you're going to do, and they're not going to like what you're going to say. But does that mean that you should be afraid of saying it or doing it anyway? And the answer to that question is no. If we continue to allow ourselves to live in fear, then the enemy, whomever they may be, they've already won. And that's what this event organizer was trying to tell people, and that's what they were trying to show people. The simple fact of the matter is, when even the moderate Muslims do not want to say anything derogatory about the not moderate Muslims, there's a problem. There's a problem, and I'm not going to go as crazy as some of the far-right folks out there that will tell you there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim. I will tell you I'm not sure if there's any such thing as a moderate Muslim. I know people that claim to be moderate Muslims. I know that Steve Long, host of Liberty Unfiltered, who is currently hosting a show over on our K98X sister station, he's decided he wants to play some alternative music for a while, which is fine. That's what that station was set up for. I've got hosts that move back and forth all the time. But that being said, he interviewed Adam Saltini, the director of the Oklahoma CARE chapter. I've done some research into CARE. I don't like what I'm finding. I can't trace it all the way down to the local branches, but the national level CARE organization has some direct ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. You can find them if you know where to look. I'm not going to tell you where to look. I'm not going to show you where to look. I want you to find them on your own. The reason I want you to find them on your own is because then you've actually found them, and it's not me putting the idea in your head. The breadcrumbs are there if you know where to look. Now, it doesn't seem to translate well from the national level to the local levels, but the fact that the big parent organization, you can find ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, that scares me. Just a little. Actually, just a lot. Again, let's be real. Because now we have this whole situation where we've been told there's a certain number of sleeper cell agents in the United States ready to act at a moment's notice, should they be asked to, and be given orders to. And we are kind of stuck in the middle. Alright, so that being said, folks, we're going to go ahead and start moving towards wrapping a few things up. Now, again, for those of you who may just now be tuning in here, in just a couple minutes, we will change over to the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show right here on K98Talk.com. Then after that, we will have, the Bunny, Polita Bunny, and then after that, we will have Jason DeWilkins, host of According to Me, to round out the night. So if you are just tuning in with us, you've got 3 more hours of great programming, and we do have lots of things in the works behind the scenes to bring you even more great programming. And I just got a nod from someone who's advising me of something that I hope to be able to tell you about pretty soon, but I don't want to spoil it just in case it doesn't work. But anyway, that being said, this is Rick Robinson. I'm going to go ahead and start moving towards shutting things down so that we can gear up to get Grouchy in here. And it's been my pleasure sitting in with all of you tonight. Just as a reminder, in case you're tuning in for the first time and catching this at the tail end of the show, these are all the places you can find the show starting pretty soon. You can always find the show on iHeart by searching America Off the Rails. The show is available on our TuneIn server at K98Talk.com anytime the show is live. You can find the podcast page over on the SparkRadioNetwork.com. Has my show listed as a featured show. Also, the shows are available on our Spreaker page for K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network page for SoundCloud. I know, it's confusing. We have all of these different networks all coming together in a single place, so some folks are like, maybe we should. And I'm like, no, it's working as designed. I want it to be a place for multiple hosts and multiple platforms coming together, because that way you get the best from everybody all in one place. That's always been my plan, and it's finally seems like it's starting to come together. So again, thanks to each and every one of you who have made this what it is. We would do it even if nobody was listening, but it's really great to not only know that folks are listening, but now that we're starting to get pretty well known. Again, newest additions here for the America Off the Rails show. Coming soon will be Leading Edge Radio Network. We have some other shows that are in possible syndication talks with them as well. And, of course, starting Monday, you can find me on amfm247.com, as well as 7 low-powered markets. If you're curious to find out where those are, you can find the information for those on amfm247.com. And, of course, there is a show landing page for yours truly there, where you can always find the show that we're going to be sending over there to them. This is Rick Robinson. I am the host of America Off the Rails. I bid you a good evening, and I do plan on being back with you tomorrow, again for a very special episode of America Off the Rails. Working title, Thin Blue Line Thursday, because it is National Law Enforcement Week, and you're not going to hear that from very many people. So if you didn't know, at some point this week, before Saturday, make sure that if you see a cop, you give them a nod, maybe pay for their meal, whatever it is that you want to do to pay it forward. Those folks put a lot on the line for you every day, and most of the time you don't even realize what it is that they go through or what they have to do to keep you safe. So just make sure that at some point this week you give them a nod, because they deserve it. I know they get bad press. I know there are bad apples, but there are bad apples in every job, not just in uniform. And the simple fact of the matter is we don't punish the ones that do good jobs when we uncover the ones that do bad jobs. Unless, of course, they're either in the military or they're in the police department. At that point, all bets are off, and we're just going to tar and feather you and ask questions later. Alright, that's going to do it from me tonight, folks. I am going to change gears now and get ready to start producing for the rest of the night. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll be back with you here in just a couple minutes.
Mark your calendar for May 21st through the 23rd for the Southern Republican Leadership Conference in Oklahoma City. K98 Talk's Rick Robinson and Grouchy from the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show will be there to cover each day's events. Join them at the conference to hear keynote Republican speakers. Now, here's Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin.
On behalf of the Oklahoma Republican Party and the entire Southern Republican Leadership Conference Committee, welcome to Oklahoma City, ranked by the National Geographic as one of the must-see places in the world in 2015. I'm Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, and the road to win back the White House begins in Oklahoma City with the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. Your participation in this historic conference is crucial to the conservative cause and energizing America. The 2016 presidential election promises to be the most important election in our lifetime, and the choices that we make in the next 2 years will define America for the next generation. We're excited to host you in Oklahoma as we begin our shared Republican journey towards capturing the White House and getting this country back on track.
Don't miss this opportunity to hear well-known leaders from the Republican Party as they discuss the upcoming presidential race for 2016. And where they stand on issues facing America today. It starts May 21st and runs through the 23rd. To register, go online to okgop.com or contact the Oklahoma Republican Party. Seats are going fast, so register today. The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rails. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again. We believe in the American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag because we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We fish the waters and we hunt the lands. We forge the steel with our own two hands. With what we've got, we do the best we can, we're Americans.
It's time now for the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show on K98 Talk. Now, here's Grouchy.
Good evening. It seems like it's been forever since I've gotten to do this. Glad everything is okay at the mothership in Oklahoma. The weather's been rough there last week, and that's why we didn't broadcast. But glad that Rick and his family are okay, and that the studio, as it were, is all intact and ready to go. So anyway, I was going to do this show last week, and it was too good not to do, so we're going to do it this week. Maybe it seems like I'm a little behind the times, but as I go through this and we touch on some topics, you're going to realize that a week ago I was actually a little on the front side of what's been going on. But that's okay. You know, things happen for a reason, and we're just going to do this, and we're going to go with it, and hopefully you are going to join me and call in and give me your ideas on this, because quite frankly, without you, it's just me babbling on, and I hope you will call me at 408-681-8255, and you don't have to talk to me about what I'm talking about. We can talk about anything if you want to. I'm flexible that way. But tonight, last week, and now tonight in lieu of last week, I wanted to do a show on freedom. And this really stemmed a lot from the Pamela Geller Free Speech Expo in Garland, Texas, where Jihad Jake and Jihad Johnny got their asses blown away by a policeman or security guard with a service revolver while they were packing AKs. And much to his credit, even though I know he was wounded, he was shot in the foot. And if that's the trade-off for taking out two hell-bent jihadis, let's hook them up with those virgins they were promised, because I'm sure they're all bearded up there and haven't shaved in forever, waiting for them. But, folks, America is a unique country. This country was founded on the principle that we're endowed with certain unalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yet today, through taxes and regulations, our government takes about half of what each of us earns. Government regulates what goods and services entrepreneurs can offer consumers and restricts consumer freedom to buy many goods from other countries. Politicians currently are trying to restrict or ban what we can smoke, where we can use our cell phones, what we can view on the internet, and which fattening foods we're allowed to eat. So, how is it that the people of a country dedicated to the proposition of freedom put up with such restrictions from political elites? And do Americans still value freedom? I, for one, do. But I think a lot of Americans may just be confused about what freedom really is. And there's been several polls done that suggest that Americans still love freedom, but there's some curious contradictions in these polls. 56% say that they would favor smaller government with fewer services rather than larger government with more services. Okay, that's a good thing. I figured that number would be a little bigger than that, but 56%, that's a good thing. 65% believe big government will be the biggest threat to the country in the future. But apparently, 9% of the people that believe that still favor big government. So there's a curious contradiction in itself. And 75% of people believe that unemployed welfare recipients would find jobs if they were not able to receive welfare. Yet 69% respond that they favor more government help to reduce poverty. Now, folks, we've been over the war on poverty in this country before on this program. We know that it's been 50 years since Lyndon Johnson declared, quote unquote, war on poverty, and that our federal government, this does not count what the states have individually spent, has spent $22 trillion in those 50 years trying to conquer poverty, only to watch it expand and pull more people in. There's a little catchphrase about our current president, Barack, who it kind of goes, Barack so loved the poor that he created millions more. Folks, it's happening. More and more people, due to these same government regulations and I guess you would call it the redistribution of wealth, is actually creating more poor people, not creating more rich people. So for some, the word freedom is just a feel-good word, like mom and apple pie, who can be against it? The seeming contradictions in Americans' attitudes towards freedom in part result from confusion created by those who would restrict our freedom. Now, this confusion is best seen in Franklin Roosevelt's 4 freedoms. 2 of them, freedom of speech and worship, are quote-unquote negative rights that simply require the government and your fellow citizens to leave you alone. Your freedom to speak your mind or worship as you please does not deprive anybody else of their right to do the same. But Roosevelt's freedom from want and from fear were different. For example, part of the positive freedom from want might mean that government must provide a house to those who can't afford one. In such a case, either government agents must march you out at gunpoint and force you to buy the house, or do the George W. Bush kinder and gentler version, if you will, of the same thing, and tax you to pay to have one built. Someone's right to a house means you are deprived of your money. Freedom from want implies eternal satisfaction with all desires met. Folks, that's a utopia, and quite frankly, it's impossible. Just ask the Russians. They proved it. It's good that Americans value prosperity and want everyone to prosper. But it's the liberty to earn money by creating goods and services, including houses, that creates prosperity, not a license to steal from those who would do the creating. Another point that some people seem to be confused about, they confuse democracy with freedom. A sociology professor, Orlando Patterson, bemoaned, quote, "the dismal state of participatory democracy, the very foundation of any free society." Now, our republic, true, is not a pure democracy. It was established as a means to protect individual liberty, intentionally. But the founders recognized that voters and elected officials could rob people of liberty and property. That's why they established a system of checks and balances, which is what our current president, Barack, really hates. Patterson's survey, however, found that most people frequently identify freedom with, quote unquote, the desire and ability to do what one wants. Americans understand what is most valuable. But yet another problem is that some Americans have difficulty imagining how a truly free society would actually work. A society without welfare, a society without Social Security, a society without Medicare. Well, wouldn't we all just be dying in the streets? Well, we weren't prior to any of those programs. If federal, state, and local governments in America did not redistribute wealth, we would each have more wealth to purchase what we want on our own terms without government strings attached. So, yeah, Americans do still value freedom, but they mistake the problems caused by intrusive government for problems caused by freedom, and thus unwittingly support restrictions on the very freedom that they value. For instance, there was no healthcare crisis prior to government intervention in the healthcare market in 1965. Yeah, 1965. But since then, problems have multiplied, and government keeps reforming the reforms that perpetuate this crisis. In recent decades, many moral habits that result from living free, such as taking responsibility for our own lives, putting our minds and creativity to their best use, have atrophied, just like a muscle does when you don't use it. But just as these weakened muscles are strengthened by exercise, a return to our rights and more freedom will make us again individuals who expect nothing less than our full rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, among the cherished values, the First Amendment protects freedom of speech. And the Supreme Court, who you have heard me speak out against as lifetime appointees, I do think their term should be limited as well as Congress's, has often struggled to determine exactly what constitutes free speech. So the First Amendment states in relevant part that, quote unquote here, Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech. Now, it's this particular right that I want to urge everybody out there to exercise. I want you to exercise it in the form of letters, emails, tweets, Facebook comments, you name it, to your elected officials, excoriating them for legislation that restricts our freedoms. Also, your freedom of speech in the form of your vote to replace these same elected officials that vote to restrict your freedom. Use these freedoms and send a crystal clear message to DC that we as Americans not only value the freedoms that we are guaranteed by our Creator, the ones outlined in our founding documents, but that we are willing to fight for them via putting freedom-loving officials in office. I can't stress how important it is to elect people that believe in true freedom. And whether you realize it or not, true freedom is not something we've had in America for quite a while now. And frankly, it's long overdue. Now, while we're still brushing on freedom of speech, let me include to you what our Supreme Court has deemed inclusive in your right to freedom of speech. You have the right not to speak, and specifically the right not to salute the flag. You have the right to wear black armbands to school to protest a war. Students do not shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate, the court said. You have the right to use certain offensive words and phrases to convey political messages. Like today I was attacked by a liberal and called a racist. Unfoundingly called a racist. They had no evidence to support that word in my context, but that's the word they chose to use, and that's fine. That's their freedom of speech. I returned a few choice words of my own. So anyway, you also have the right to contribute money to political campaigns under certain circumstances. So that is a limited freedom. You have the right to advertise commercial products and professional services with some restrictions. And you have the right to engage in symbolic speech, according to the Supreme Court, which sickeningly includes burning the flag in protest. Now, freedom of speech does have limitations. And what you are not allowed to do as part of the right to free speech, per the Supreme Court, is to incite actions that would harm others. This is the shouting fire in a crowded theater theory. You apparently do not have the right to make or distribute obscene materials. Why the government is defining the word obscene is beyond me. That seems like a huge restriction on people's freedoms. I may not want to see the material you distribute or produce, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to make or distribute it. You do not have the right to burn draft cards. I think that one could probably come off the books now. You do not have the right to permit students to print articles in a school newspaper over the objections of the school administration. Is that really a problem that the Supreme Court needed to be involved in? Maybe. You also, students do not have the right to make an obscene speech at a school-sponsored event. I believe that should actually, as a school rule, I understand that. But even more so, I believe that should fall under the umbrella of parenting, because if you raise your child right, they won't be doing that anyway. Students do not have the right to advocate illegal drug use at a school-sponsored event. Now, these are just, it's not everything. These are just some of the more pronounced decisions that the Supreme Court made involving freedom of speech, either for or against. Now, we're still dealing with the First Amendment here. It's part of the Bill of Rights. It's supposed to ensure against government intrusions on the essential personal freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom of press, free expression, association, freedom of assembly. And the courts have interpreted the language to mean that no arm of the government, federal or state, can abridge the right to free speech, yet they do. So what was the rationale underlying the original thought of a right to free speech? Well, Thomas Jefferson and other founders believed that minimizing the limits on what people were free to say was essential for our republic to thrive. The marketplace of ideas belief holds that the truth and good public policy arise from the competition of widely varying ideas freely shared in public discourse. The founders also thought that open exchanges of ideas would encourage tolerance among people with opposing views. Now, this is all fine and good, and we're going to touch some more on that type theory a little later on. We're going to get into it a little deeper, but we've already covered what's included and what's shielded from government intrusion as far as free speech goes. There's a term, however, called fighting words. So how does one determine what constitutes fighting words? Because there are exceptions per the Supreme Court for fighting words, terrorist threats, defamation, obscenity, and false advertising. However, the exceptions are meant to be narrow. So there's no real patent answer as to what are quote unquote fighting words or obscenity. The courts are responsible for guarding against the generally accepted wisdom of the day being treated as required thought. One may not yell fire in a crowded theater, not because to do so is foolish or offensive, but because to do so would create a real possibility of imminent injury. So their logic is similarly, quote unquote, fighting words only reaches words which by their utterance inflict injury or incite an immediate breach of peace. And this was Chaplinsky versus the state of New Hampshire in 1942. They also said that words that are distasteful or highly offensive are not considered fighting words. I'm not sure what Chaplinsky versus the state of New Hampshire was really all about. I intend to research it further. But I don't really understand the term fighting words anyway. I mean, I get a vague picture of what it means, but you can say anything to me. That doesn't mean I'm going to punch you in the face. If you want to call me a half-breed, multiracial asshole, I really don't care. You're entitled to your opinion. People that know me know that that's already true. So what difference does it make whether you say it out loud? The lesson to be drawn is that the experience of democracy is that when freedom is taken for granted, it is at risk of being lost. And each citizen and each generation is called to actively maintain the First Amendment. It's all about mutuality. Citizenship does not entail necessarily saying or believing in anything in particular, but it does entail accepting that others may hold and express their beliefs as they choose. So for me, freedom of speech, what I consider one of the most perfect examples would be for somebody to step up to a podium at a public event where there's people of all races, creeds, colors, sexes, religions, doesn't matter, and say exactly what you think about anything you want to speak about. And everybody else sitting there holding their tongue, giving you your right to free speech. And then when you're done, you yield the microphone and keep your mouth shut while the person behind you expresses their beliefs that are the complete opposite as yours. That, my friends, is real freedom of speech. So, surprisingly, there's actually very little definitively known about what the framers meant by freedom of speech. The debates in the first Congress, which proposed the Bill of Rights, are brief and unilluminating. Early state constitutions generally included similar provisions, but there is no record of detailed debate about what those state provisions meant. The framers cared a good deal about the freedom of the press, as the appeal to the inhabitants of Quebec, written by the First Continental Congress in 1774, shows. The last right we shall mention regards the freedom of the press. The importance of this consists, besides the advancement of truth, science, morality, and arts in general, in its diffusion of liberal sentiments on the administration of government, its ready communication of thoughts between subjects, and its consequential promotion of union among them, whereby oppressive officers are shamed or intimidated into more honorable and just modes of conducting affairs. Sounds pretty reasonable to me. This statement mentions some of the values that the founders saw as inherent in the principle of freedom of the press. The search and attainment of truth, scientific progress, cultural development, and the increase of virtue among the people. The holding of governmental offices to Republican values. Republican as in little r, not GOP. Republican as in our republic. The strengthening of community, and a check upon self-aggrandizing politicians. I'll say that again. A check upon self-aggrandizing politicians. But broad statements such as this may tell us less than we would like to know about what the freedom of the press meant to the founders as a rule of law, when the freedom would yield to competing concerns, or whether the freedom prohibited only prior restraints or subsequent punishments. There were very few reported founding-era court cases interpreting the federal and state freedom of speech laws and the press clause, and very few founding-era political controversies that would have excited some detailed discussion of what the clause really meant. The governments of the time were quite small. We should return to that. And the statute books thin. We should also return to that. There were few laws restricting commercial advertising. There was only one state law banning pornography, and that appears to have been unenforced until 1821. There were a few state blasphemy laws, but they were largely unenforced from the early 1700s until the 1810s. There were no bans on flag burning, campaign spending, or anonymous speech. This does not necessarily mean that such speech was broadly believed to be constitutionally protected. Then, as today, the government did not ban all that it had the power to ban, but the paucity of such bans meant that few people in that era really had occasion to define what the constitutional boundaries of speech and press protection might be. The only speech restriction was broadly enforced was traditional libel law. Defaming another person was understood to be constitutionally unprotected. In fact, the most prominent free press debate of the years immediately following the framing, the Sedition Act controversy, illustrated that there was little consensus on even as central an issue as whether the free press guarantee only prohibited prior restraints on publications critical of the government, or whether it was forbade punishment for seditious speech once it was made. In 1798, the country was fighting the quasi-war with France. The Federalist Party controlled all three branches of the federal government, and its members suspected many Republican Party stalwarts of sympathizing with France in the French Revolution and thus fomenting disloyalty. Now, folks, I'm in the middle here, but we're at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to keep pushing forward with freedom. What is it? What does it mean? And are we still free? Right here on the Conservative Curmudgeon Show. Bring it, Mr. Producer. We're ready.
Ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa. Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em.
So let me be clear. You didn't build that.
Everything he's done is clean as a whistle. He's never not only broken any law, he's never done anything wrong. He's the perfect father, the perfect husband, the perfect American.
Hey y'all, this is Sam Janney, or the Bunny as many of you know me by, your friendly neighborhood bad girl of conservatism. Here to talk to you about my show. I'll talk about conservative issues, my top 10 douchebags of the week, and have some pretty badass conservative guests on the show. All that, plus me, your resident bunny with a chainsaw.
Wednesday nights will never be the same. It's Unapologetically Bunny. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on K98 Talk. Hey everybody, this is Jason, host of According to Me. I'd like to invite you to check out my show. It's a 2-hour show that lasts 60 minutes in...
Listen, I hate to interrupt, but one thing I can do is read off a script. Just say, let me be clear a lot. It works.
President Obama, I can handle this. It's a radio promo. I'm not green. I've done this before.
Did someone say green?
Now, Al Gore is here. Listen, I'm just trying to record a radio promo. Do you mind?
Now, do you say good things about me on the show?
No, not at all. But if it makes you feel any better, I rip on Republicans just as much.
The AM radio frequencies give off very high levels of radiation.
Look, my show is on the internet, which you invented. Can I just do my promo?
I got a pen. I can veto that, you know.
I know you got a pen. It's not a law. It's a radio promo. Listen, just listen to my show. Barack Obama and Al Gore hate it, so you're going to love it.
Here's an executive order. Don't listen to his show. He doesn't like me. He's racist. And he doesn't recycle either.
That's it. I'm done. It's According to Me, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on K98 Talk.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
Mark your calendar for May 21st through the 23rd for the Southern Republican Leadership Conference in Oklahoma City. K98 Talk's Rick Robinson and Grouchy from the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show will be there to cover each day's events. Join them at the conference to hear keynote Republican speakers. Now, here's Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin.
On behalf of the Oklahoma Republican Party and the entire Southern Republican Leadership Conference Committee, welcome to Oklahoma City, ranked by the National Geographic as one of the must-see places in the world in 2015. I'm Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, and the road to win back the White House begins in Oklahoma City with the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. Your participation in this historic conference is crucial to the conservative cause and energizing America. The 2016 presidential election promises to be the most important election in our lifetime, and the choices that we make in the next 2 years will define America for the next generation. We're excited to host you in Oklahoma as we begin our shared Republican journey towards capturing the White House and getting this country back on track.
Don't miss this opportunity to hear well-known leaders from the Republican Party as they discuss the upcoming presidential race for 2016 and where they stand on issues facing America today. It starts May 21st and runs through the 23rd. To register, go online to okgop.com or contact the Oklahoma Republican Party. Seats are going fast, so register today.
Ain't that America for you and me? Ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
Welcome back to Wednesday night on K98Talk.com. Conservative Talks Radio Grand Slam, if you will. You started your evening off with Rowdy Rick with America Off the Rails. You're now with me for another half hour or so. Then it's time for Polita Bunny with Unapologetically Bunny, and then According to Me with Jason DeWilkins every Wednesday night on K98Talk.com. So when we left off, Congress was debating all this seditious talk and thinking that Republicans were being disloyal. And, the government, the Congress, the president, or to stir up sedition within the United States or to excite any unlawful combinations for opposing or resisting any law of the United States, or to aid, encourage, or abet any hostile designs of any foreign nation. We passed these laws. Notably, malicious falsehoods about the Vice President, Thomas Jefferson, who was a leading Republican, were not covered by the law. And the law was scheduled to expire on March 3rd, 1801, the day before the Federalist President John Adams' term was to end. Several publishers were in fact convinced under the law, often under rather biased applications of the falsity requirement. Then Federalist Congressman John Marshall, although doubtful that the Sedition Act was wise, nonetheless argued to the free press guarantee meant only liberty to publish, free from previous restraint, free of requirements that printers be licensed or that their material be approved before publication. Under his view, which echoed the British law as expounded by Sir William Blackstone, criminal punishment after publication was constitutional. Others, such as James Madison, the principal drafter of the Bill of Rights, argued the opposite. This idea of the freedom of the press can never be admitted to the American idea of it, since a law inflicting penalties on printed publications would have a similar effect with a law authorizing a previous restraint on them. Likewise, Marshall and other Federalists argued that the freedom of the press must necessarily be limited. Sound familiar? Because government cannot be secured if by falsehood and malicious slander it is to be deprived of the confidence and affection of the people. Not so reasoned Madison and other Republicans. Even speech that creates a contempt, a disrepute, or hatred of the government among the people should be tolerated, because the only way of determining whether such contempt is justified is by a free examination of the government's actions and a free communication among the people thereon. It was as if half the country read the constitutional guarantee one way and the other half read it another. The founding generation undoubtedly believed deeply in the freedom of speech and freedom of press. But then, as now, these general terms were understood quite differently by many people. Many people did not think about their precise meanings until a concrete controversy arose, and when a controversy did arise, the analysis was often influenced by people's political interest as much as by their honest constitutional understanding. In 1995 Supreme Court case McIntyre v. Ohio Elections Commission, it illustrates the continuing debate over the original meaning of the clause. The question in McIntyre was whether the government could outlaw anonymous electioneering. The majority dealt with the question based on the court's 20th century case law and 20th century First Amendment theories. Justices Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia, the court's most devoted originalists, however, did focus on the original meaning discussion, but reached different results. Both justices recognized that there was no record of discussions of anonymous political expression in the first Congress, which drafted the Bill of Rights, or in the state ratifying conventions. They both recognized that much political speech in the time of the framers, such as the Federalist itself, was anonymous. Indeed, much political speech justifying resistance to Parliament before the Revolution was also anonymous. To Justice Thomas, the experience of the founders in their own use of anonymous free speech was dispositive of what they would have regarded as a vital part of freedom of speech, particularly where political speech was at issue. Scalia, however, who has a narrower view of what can be accepted as evidence of original intent apart from the text of the provision itself, argued that to prove that anonymous electioneering was used frequently is not to establish that it is a constitutional right. Perhaps the legislature simply chose not to prohibit the speech, even though they had the constitutional power to do so. Justice Thomas did produce evidence that some founding era commentators saw anonymity and constitutionally protected, or as constitutionally protected. Scalia replied that many of these were mere partisan cries that said little about any generally accepted understanding. So, as with the Bill of Rights, free speech, and press, it guarantees only government can restrict your action, not action by private employers, property owners, householders, churches, universities, and the like. As with most of the Bill of Rights, the free speech and press guarantee applies equally to federal and state governments, which includes local governments as well as all branches of each government. In particular, civil courts are subject to the First Amendment, which is why libel law and tort law rules must comply with free speech and press principles. Now, I've got another piece I want to get into, and our time's already getting short, so bear with me here a second as I move to this. And did I not? I may not have put it in here. Okay, we'll just go back. It's fine. So anyway, Scalia turned to American practices of the 1800s and 1900s, a source that he considers authoritative, where the original meaning is uncertain. A consensus on the original meaning of this subject remains elusive, though. Despite the originalist debate between Justices Thomas and Scalia, today's free speech and free press law is not much influenced by original meaning. It is mostly the creature of the experience and thinking of the 20th century, as the court first began to hear a wide range of free speech cases only in the late 1910s. This approach has produced, we touched on those. Okay, I just skipped over that. So free speech and free press clauses have been read as providing essentially equal protection to speakers and writers, whether or not they are members of the institutional press and largely regardless of the medium, books, newspapers, movies, internet, in which they communicate. Newspapers enjoy no more and no fewer constitutional rights than individuals. The one exception is over the airwaves radio and television broadcasting, which has for historical reasons been given less constitutional protection. And this would be the case Reno v. ACLU from 1997. And you can look that up. I'm sure you get who Reno is already. That would be Janet Reno, who, when they make the movie about the Clinton family, will be played by the dead actor Jack Palance. The free speech and press guarantee also extends to any conduct that is conventionally understood as expressive. For instance, waving a flag, wearing an armband, or, sadly enough, according to the Supreme Court, burning our flag, which is a despicable, disgusting act. And if you walk on our flag, it's equally as despicable and disgusting. It also extends to conduct that is necessary in order to speak effectively. For example, using money to buy a public address system or buy advertising. Restrictions on independent campaign expenditures, for instance, raise First Amendment problems because restricting the use of money for speech purposes is a speech restriction. And there were actually 3 different Supreme Court cases to support that spanned from 1931 to 1976 to 2003 and has been upheld all 3 times. So the free speech and press guarantee extends not just to political speech, but also to speech about religion, science, morality, and even entertainment. In the words of a 1948 case, the line between the informing and the entertaining is too elusive for the protection of that basic right. Everyone is familiar with instances of propaganda through fiction. What is one man's amusement teaches another's doctrine. And the guarantee extends to lowbrow expression, such as jokes or even profanity, as well as highbrow expression. The free speech and press guarantee extends to all viewpoints, good or evil, conservative or liberal. There is no exception for communism or Nazism or Islamic radicalism, sexist speech or hate speech, whatever that rather vague term may mean to some people. Under the First Amendment, there is no such thing as a false idea. However pernicious an opinion may seem, we depend for its correction not on the conscience of judges and juries, but on the competition of other ideas. And this was affirmed in Gertz versus Robert Welch in 1974 and the New York Times versus Sullivan in 1964. There is, however, a small set of rather narrow exceptions to free speech protection. The first is incitement. Speech may be restricted if it is intended to persuade people to engage in imminent unlawful conduct and is likely to cause such imminent unlawful conduct. Now, let's just go back just not too long ago to Ferguson, Missouri. Yes, you remember when Mike Brown's stepfather was standing on top of the car screaming to burn this bitch down. I consider that inciting violence and unlawful conduct, and I consider it imminent that people lost businesses and jobs and personal property because of his words. He should have been charged, and had it not been for the cowardice of Missouri, with the United States Justice Department crawling through every orifice in their quote-unquote body, he would have been. Next up are false statements of fact. False statements of fact may generally be punished if they are knowing lies, though generally not if they are honest mistakes, even unreasonable mistakes. There are, however, some situations where even honest mistakes can be punished, and a few where even intentional lies are protected. And it goes back to Gertz versus Welch, 1974. Same case, different points. Next up is obscenity. According to this, hardcore pornography is punishable if the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the work taken as a whole appeals to a shameful or morbid interest in sex or excretion. Or excretion. Anybody remember the quote-unquote artwork that was dubbed Piss Christ? The work depicts or describes in a way that is patently offensive under contemporary community standards sexual conduct specifically defined by the applicable state law, and the work, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Per Miller v. California, 1973. Next, that is not protected, is child pornography. I really don't think that we need a whole lot of explanation there. Just sad that it took a Supreme Court affirmation in 2002 in Ashcroft v. Free Speech Coalition to solidify that. Sickening that somebody would argue in favor of child pornography. Threats. Speech that is reasonably perceived as a threat of violence and not just rhetorical hyperbole can be punished. And now we're back to my favorite, fighting words. Face-to-face insults that are addressed to a particular person and are likely to cause an imminent fight can be punished. More generalized offensive speech that is not addressed to a particular person cannot be punished, even if it is profane or deeply insulting. So, if you call me a half-white cracker, which is kind of a contradiction of terms, but okay, just throw whatever out there. Call me whatever you want. I don't care. In all likelihood, if you've sunk into calling me names, you're likely an ignorant jackass anyway, and why would I care what you think about me? So, speech owned by others now, intellectual property laws, such as copyright laws, may restrict people from using a particular expression that is owned by somebody else, but the law may not let anybody monopolize facts or ideas. Now, folks, we're going to stop here for a minute and we're going to talk about our freedom of speech and our freedom of the press and our freedom of expression. Quite frankly, our government is slap out of control when it comes to regulating our lives. And going back to my earlier words, it's up to us, not them, to take our freedom back. And I need you to seize what the founders were talking about and understand it. And don't vote for a politician just because he seems to be the lesser of two evils. You may get saddled with that choice, and that may end up restricting your vote because, quite frankly, in 2016, we may face the lesser of two evils as a choice. I hope to hell not. I hope that we're smart enough as conservatives to put forth a candidate that loves freedom, that loves Americans to be free, and wants to work for us. I want us to think about that with our congressmen and our senators. What the hell has either the House of Representatives or the Senate done in the last 50 years? I'm going to go back 50 years because that's an age I'm nearing, okay? So literally in my lifetime, Congress as a whole hasn't done a damn thing to strengthen our Constitution and our constitutional rights. And I want you to think long and hard about that before you sign off on sending some jackwagon career politician back to D.C. All right, and I'm going to jump off the soapbox. I've got one more fact to hit you with that I just couldn't resist because the federal government is already lying about it. And I thought we'd just go ahead and address it for a minute real quick here as we get ready to wrap up. United States companies hired in April, we're going to touch on employment here, at the slowest pace in nearly a year and a half. The strong dollar dragged down overseas sales, and energy companies cut back on spending in the face of lower oil prices. Payroll processor ADP said Wednesday that businesses added just 169,000 jobs in April, down from 175 in the previous month, which was revised downward after the Feds once again falsely gave numbers. This week's showing could raise fears that the economy is slipping into a period of sluggish growth or even, oh my God, another recession after expanding at a quote-unquote healthy pace for most of last year. I still don't know where that expansion is other than maybe in some tech and maybe in some hospitality. A big increase in the trade gap reported Tuesday means the economy probably shrank in the first quarter. Yeah, we probably had a retracting GDP again with Obama. That could weigh on job gains. Employers added just 126,000 jobs in March, according to the government's data, which you didn't hear about because when they first released March's numbers, it was close to 300,000 jobs they said was added, and then they revised downward 2 times after that, and that must have made like page 29 and then page 33. So this is the fewest jobs in 15 months, and April's job report was released Friday, and economists are forecasting that hiring rebounded to 220,000. Friends, they announced a number that was bigger than that, and I promise you that by the end of this month, we will get the downward revision to under 200,000 again. These disappointing figures suggest that hiring could remain sluggish. And many economists discounted the report because the ADP survey has a quote-unquote spotty track record of forecasting the official figures. Never mind that they've nailed it the last 2 months. Now, folks, I don't have time to go into more because time is short. It is getting time for Unapologetically Bunny with Polita-Bunny, Sam Janney. Sam's going to rock your socks off tonight, as usual, and she's going to be followed by Jason DeWilkins with According to Me. Make sure you stay tuned for the next 2 hours and join them in the chat room on K98talk.com. This is your friendly neighborhood Grouch saying peace out, and I will see you next week.
Ain't that America for you and me? Ain't that America? Something to see, baby. Ain't that America? Home of the free, yeah.
Mark your calendar for May 21st through the 23rd for the Southern Republican Leadership Conference in Oklahoma City. K98 Talk's Rick Robinson and Grouchy from the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show will be there to cover each day's events. Join them at the conference to hear keynote Republican speakers. Now, here's Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin.
On behalf of the Oklahoma Republican Party and the entire Southern Republican Leadership Conference Committee, welcome to Oklahoma City, ranked by the National Geographic as one of the must-see places in the world in 2015. I'm Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, and the road to win back the White House begins in Oklahoma City with a Southern Republican Leadership Conference. Your participation in this historic conference is crucial to the conservative cause and energizing America. The 2016 presidential election promises to be the most important election in our lifetime, and the choices that we make in the next 2 years will define America for the next generation. We're excited to host you in Oklahoma as we begin our shared Republican journey towards capturing the White House and getting this country back on track.
Don't miss this opportunity to hear well-known leaders from the Republican Party as they discuss the upcoming presidential race for 2016 and where they stand on issues facing America today. It starts May 21st and runs through the 23rd. To register, go online to okgop.com or contact the Oklahoma Republican Party. Seats are going fast.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
The staff of K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network is proud to announce that our very own Rowdy Rick Robinson has been selected as one of the top conservative talk show hosts in the nation for his program America Off the Rail. Again, congratulations to Rowdy Rick Robinson for a job well done and another reason to stay connected to K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network. K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again. One shot, baby, there you go again. 2 shots and I think you know again. 3 shots come, you might find your daddy gone. 1 shot, baby, there you go again. 2 shots and I think you know again. 3 shots.
Welcome to Unapologetically Bunny. I am your host, the not-so-coordinated Bunny, back with you live right here on K98talk.com. Yeah, I say not so coordinated because I actually had my first fender bender ever today. I know, right? I'm like going to turn 42 in June, and it's my first fender bender. And I wish I could say it was like some kind of exciting accident where I was trying to dodge nuns or orphans or something, but I like totally hit a parked car. That was my accident. I hit a parked car.
And I can't even tell you, it wasn't even like I was parallel parking, which would even almost sound, kind of like, well, at least you were trying something a little more difficult. No. I was trying to pull into a roundabout. And I was driving my rather large gas-guzzling SUV, my Hummer, and I cut it too close to this little Toyota. And it was a little Toyota, so I guess there's a joke here somewhere. But basically what I did was I clipped the back of my little bar, clipped this Toyota. I heard the noise, and I thought, oh, crap. So I pull over thinking there's going to be a scratch, because I just scratched the damn thing. I didn't exactly hit it, right? Whole freaking bumper from this Toyota is on the ground. I look at my truck, nada. Nothing. Not a scratch, nothing. My giant, evil SUV destroyed this gas-efficient car, and it tells you a lot about gas-efficient cars, doesn't it? But yeah, the police came, and he looks at my car, and he says, "Are you sure you did this?" I'm like, "Yes, I heard it. I was there. Why would I claim that I had a parked car like an idiot if I didn't really do it?" Yeah, I really did it. And it was interesting, too, because I shared this in social media, as I like to do with all the kind of weird things that happen in my life. And I'm explaining to people about the big truck hitting the little car. And you good people in social media had me laughing because you were acting like the MSM was going to cover the accident. And the headlines were like, rabid, radical, conservative radio host on rampage hitting parked fuel-efficient cars with her military-style vehicle. And boy, that was way funnier than what actually happened, where I was just not really gauging the distance correctly, and I hit a Toyota. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why you should buy American. I'm just kidding. Anyway, thanks for being here tonight. It's been an interesting day. I had to share that with you. Oh, and it was really cool because as I'm talking to the police officer, God love him, he's going over this and that, and he's like, well, I'm not going to ticket you because you stopped, and a lot of people run. And the whole time he's talking to me, he's calling me ma'am. Which, I thought was okay because I don't have a problem with ma'am. I'm cool with that. But luckily, he didn't call me by my first name. Ah, you seeing a pattern here? Because, when you call women by their first name, that's sexist. Oh, yeah, I hope you know that now. A couple weeks ago, Hillary Clinton's campaign was like, oh, don't call her Hillary. That is, so sexist. Which we all made fun of because her name is freaking Hillary. What are you going to call her? The other Clinton, like the other white meat or whatever? I guess you could. That's kind of funny, the other white meat. Anyway, so apparently this week, and I got to talk about this because the whole sexism thing, guys, is really getting old. It's like, where can we find something else to call sexist? A lady belched in public. Oh, that's got to be sexist, right? I guess if there's fart rape, there's belch rape or something, right? Well, apparently, Elizabeth Warren has not been in agreement with Obama on this whole trade deal thing. And she's been very vocal about not agreeing with him. And apparently Obama was interviewed, and when he was asked about Senator Warren's her issues, basically he said, well, she's a politician. Elizabeth is a politician, and she's playing politics. Well, it wasn't that people were upset with him for saying she was playing politics. No, they were upset with him because he called her Elizabeth. Yeah. And I think personally, and not that I'm defending Obama, because God knows I would never defend Obama, but, he's like Mr. Friendly, right? He's Mr. Buddy. He's, hey, y'all, I'm going to call you by your first name because I'm down home in folksy. So I think that's what he was doing. And I hate to say that because, it'd be much more fun if he was being a sexist asshole, but I really don't think he was. I think he was just being him and acting like they're on a first name basis and telling people it's really not a big deal, so don't worry about it. But I don't know. They were saying it was sexist. And I'm sorry, I would be totally lying if I didn't say I was enjoying watching them eat their own, because it so seldom seems to happen on the left. The right likes to eat their own. Like, we get pissed at each other and we'll bitch for weeks about each other, and someone screws up on the right, and boy, we will hammer you on that. The left could kick puppies on TV and somehow find a way to defend one another. So to hear them kind of grumbling amongst themselves has been a lot of fun, right? So from now on, guys, you can't just call me Bunny because calling me Bunny is sexist. It has to be Polita Bunny, right? You got it? Because calling me by my first name is sexist. I tell you what. Another thing, too. Okay, so Hillary Clinton. I got to go back to Hillary Clinton because this is funny. A few weeks back, or maybe it was just 2 weeks back, Hillary Clinton was basically asking people to sign up to get her bumper sticker, right? So for shits and giggles, I went over and I decided I was going to sign up to get a bumper sticker. Not because I support Hillary, but because, God, I could have a lot of fun with that sticker. So I go over and I sign up to get the bumper sticker. This is cool, right? I don't mind. And as you're signing up, they ask you for a donation. Shocker, Hillary wants your money, whatever. So I didn't give her any money. I'm like, at zero. But I signed up for the bumper sticker, which still hasn't gotten here. But what has gotten here, guys, is a shitload of emails begging me for money. And every one of these emails talks about evil Republicans picking on Hillary every day, blah, blah, blah. They're out to get her. So they're so scared of Hillary, they have to attack her and make all these outlandish claims. You know, I don't get that the claims, if her behavior is outlandish, the claims really aren't, right? But these emails are killing me. And so I've started taking like little snapshots of them and I'm sharing them in social media because I feel like you all should have a giggle with them. Like I'm having a giggle at her. Let's see. One of them was, oh yeah, if you donated by last night, you could be one of her founding campaign donors. And kind of alluding that you would be a founding father in her campaign. Yeah, a founding father in Hillary Clinton's campaign, which I thought was really funny because, yeah, I was one of the first ones to sign up for her bumper sticker, so I'm getting these emails, and God knows I'm not going to give her any money. So I see all these founding father emails, and I have to giggle. And I will tell you this, guys, her campaign manager is on it. You hear from these people every day. It's interesting, though, to hear how much money she needs when you know how much money she actually has, although she would be the first to tell you that she's broke. And, you know, they're all poor and stuff, how that goes. Because Democrats are so silly. They really are silly. I've come to that conclusion. I kind of go back and forth between silly and evil. And I think they're more silly anymore because evil is just kind of a constant. And within the silly Democrats, there are sillier Democrats. And by that, yeah, I'm actually have a whole train of thought. I tried to think this through because I knew I'd be spacey after this morning with my massive fender bender. But you know who's even sillier? There are little sects within the Democratic Party that are sillier than silly. And I'm talking about, and I'm going to hear about this, but I'm talking about the Black Lives Matter crew. I hear y'all. Hey, I got to talk about these folks a little bit because there's a whole Tony Robinson thing out of Madison, Wisconsin. If you're not familiar with Tony Robinson, please get out from under a rock, get on some social media, read a newspaper, okay? But anyway, Tony Robinson is a young man who got high and put his hands on a cop and was killed. Well, they had the whole court thing and they found that the cop did nothing illegal, like no murder. He didn't murder this kid. Well, as you can imagine, that became this whole, if you don't find this cop guilty, we're going to riot in the streets in Madison. If you've never been to Madison, Madison is like major liberal grouping of people. I mean, it's like Madistan. It really is. And I would call it one of the liberal capitals of the country. Whack jobs in Madison. You Wisconsin liberals are some of the craziest bastards I've ever talked to. So, of course, they threatened to riot because Tony is black. But he's not. So does Black Lives Matter. So they're out there with these big banners and they're rioting and protesting and they're saying Black Lives Matter. Tony was half white. So does the half white side not matter? I'm just curious. And I know someone's going to go, oh, Bunny, I heard you. You're such a racist, blah, blah, blah. I'll be like, yeah, join the club. What else is new? But I got to ask, if he's not really black, he's mulatto. I mean, there's a term for folks who are black and white. They're mulatto. Do mulatto lives matter? Do half black lives matter? Does the white half matter less? I have these questions for these folks who are using these dead young men to push their agenda. How do you make sense of this? Do we not, hey, white people, should we say, hey, white lives matter? Should we be rioting in the streets for this young man? And what about the two cops who were gunned down in Mississippi? One of them was black. Why aren't they rioting over his life? Does his life matter less because he was a cop? I have so many questions about their agenda and their rhetoric, and I just can't keep all this shit straight. And I think that's probably how they like it, because none of it makes any sense. And if none of it makes any sense, they don't have to be accountable for any of it, do they? Speaking of accountability, I have to mention this. I'm going to take a short break before the douchebags list. But accountability. Today, House Resolution 36 passed the House. This is a kind of a big deal if you're a pro-life fanatic like yours truly. This would ban abortions after 20 weeks. And it did pass 4 Democrats actually voted for it. 4 Republicans actually voted against it. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. It was an interesting debate. Of course, a typical debate of this women's choice, blah, blah, blah. Babies can feel pain, blah, blah, blah. House Resolution 36 passed the House. Now it has to go to the Senate, of course. And even if it gets through the Senate, then it probably will get vetoed by Obama. But it tells you they're paying attention and they're looking at protecting the unborn. It's all about accountability, don't you think? Being accountable for the choices you make before a baby is ever involved. Yeah. Okay, well, on that happy note, I'm going to take a short break, get a drink of water, and when I get back, I have this week's top 10 douchebags, so stay put.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members or their families, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to keep them secure for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Join us at findwwp.org.
And we're back from break. Thanks for staying put. You know, I forgot to kind of apologize if I sound froggy. You know, I've been whining about this for days, but if I sound froggy, it's not because I'm trying this whole deep voice, Kathleen Turner thing. I actually have a cold, and I'm on the end of a cold, and I'm still whiny about it, and it makes me sound like crap. But anyway, we're back, and thanks for staying through the break. I'm ready to go through this week's top 10 douchebags. Now, if you are new to the show, welcome aboard. Just to give you a heads up on how this works. Every week I ask for your nominations on who is a douchebag out in the world. We take your nominations and we make a list of 10 of these douchebags to mock and ridicule on the show. The coolest part about this is that you play a part in making the Bunny Show happen. So let's get started. At number 10 is Oregon Governor Kate Brown, because she signed a bill on Monday expanding background checks for gun sales, changing the state's law so that private gun sales will also require these checks. Now, you know, for some reason, these gun control people think that bad people with guns are going to pay attention to the law. And I don't know how many times we have to tell them this is just not so. If they're a criminal, guess what? They don't give two shits about the law. And so you can put as many laws in place as you want that will supposedly keep them from getting guns. But if bad guys want to get a gun and do bad things, they're going to get a gun and do bad things. And all you're doing is making the good guys who could be armed to protect themselves harder for them to have a weapon. Knock that shit off. And you're a douchebag at number 10. Number 9. This one. Democrats using the Amtrak tragedy as another means to attack Republicans proves once again what we already knew, that they have no hearts or no souls. For example, Tuxedo Cat on Twitter said, "Hope there are lots of Republicans on that Amtrak train. Then maybe they'll have a come to Jesus moment and fund infrastructure." You know, perhaps Tuxedo has forgotten the Democrats were fully in charge for 7 years. Oh, another person said, side note, please make sure and nominate the Amtrak engineer who was going 107 miles an hour in the 50 mile per hour zone and lawyered up after speaking with investigators. Gee, why would he lawyer up if he wasn't doing something wrong? And, you know, they've been actually talking about that there was a package that hit the train before it went off the tracks, and, you know, all the tinfoils out there about what that might have been, if it is relevant. They're saying it wasn't. Of course, Democrats are happy to say the GOP is to blame for it, even though, of course, there is no evidence of that fact. But since we don't want to raise taxes, it's somehow our fault that some train crashed. And they are happy to use the people who have passed away, people who have been injured, and people who are missing to push their agenda, even though we don't even know how many dead people there are yet. So, at number 9, as usual, Democrats, you are douchebags. At number 8, and speaking of Democrats, the gun sense crazies are nominated, and all of these people are just batshit crazy. An example of their hate is Fred Mertz. We know Fred is not really his name, but we'll use it anyway. Who said things like, gun nutters are killing their own kids. I don't have anything to do but laugh at that. One drink of water, hold on. Okay, and gun nutter kids won't grow up to be gun nutters because they're dead, and that's a good thing. This is all the same guy, by the way. And finally, he said, the more gun nutters kill themselves and their own kids, the less likely they are to kill me and my kids. Who talks like that? Oh, I know, douchebags who are gun sense guys. But what a horrible thing to say about people who just want to protect their Second Amendment rights. Understanding that you have the right to bear arms does not make you a gun nutter. And it does not mean your children deserve to be killed, asshole. So at number 8, people like Fred Mertz, they are douchebags. At number 7 is Sally Cohn. Sally keeps making the list. Sally Cohn, for not being able to take a kindness, is just that, in making someone doing something nice for her about white privilege. So apparently Sally was getting on her subway and did not have her wallet with her, and so the person let her go ahead and get on anyway. Instead of thinking this was something nice, Sally had to talk about the fact that this person did it because she was white. Yeah. You know, I think they did it because they knew she was a lesbian. I know, lesbian privilege. I have to talk about lesbian privilege. I'm totally just screwing with you. But really, someone does something nice for her and she uses it to talk about white privilege. What a piece of shit douchebag. At number 7. Number 6, Michelle Obama. This one kills me. For whining about how hard it has been to be the first black woman to be the first lady. Yeah, she went on and she did a whole story about how horrible her life is as first lady. She has millions of dollars at her disposal to go on vacation. She has her little dogs who fly in their own plane. She has her own horrible wardrobe. And she's complaining about it. I find that fascinating. You know, Laura Bush didn't have a picnic as first lady. Being first lady is not about just having a good time and being popular. There is a purpose behind it. And I'm sorry if she feels like it's been so miserable for her because of her skin color. But come on, you were elected regardless of your skin color. So why would you complain about it? I know why she complained about it, because she complains about everything. And she wasn't happy or proud of her country until her husband was elected president. So that really does make her a douchebag. At number 6. And number 5 is Chris Cuomo. For magically finding the hate speech exemption in the First Amendment. Yeah, I look for that damn thing everywhere. I cannot find anywhere where it says hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment. You know, I'm sure when they're writing it, they're like, make sure you put a point in there about hate speech so we can't be mean to each other. Yeah, that's not protected. Don't do that. Somehow he found it. Oh, and of course he started blaming the GOP for the Amtrak crash right away, while refusing to acknowledge that there may have been some terror connection with the package. So he's happy to blame the GOP. But he says, oh, no, there's no evidence of terrorism here, so don't blame the poor Muslims. Interesting guy there, and a douchebag. At number 3 is Jessica Valenti. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying not to cough in your ear. I know that's annoying, but I got to do it. All right, Jessica Valenti. Do you guys know who this woman is? She's a feminist. Yeah, shocker. Jessica Valenti for her statements on passive sexism. Passive sexism. Yeah, listen to this. Apparently, Ms. Valenti was on a subway and noticed a man had some of the same followers as she did, which is creepy because, I mean, she was like staring at his phone and peeking at what he was doing, which is totally stalker-esque and probably sexist some way, but we won't go there. And what she did was she found out somehow by this connection that he had more male followers than female followers. Right, keep following along. So that made him passively sexist. Yeah. No, I went ahead. There's this website, and it's like Tweak or Tweep or something, and someone will have to say it in the chat room because I can't remember it. But what it does is it tells you how many men versus women you RT, although I don't know how it can tell what a man or woman is on freaking Twitter because there's like hedgehogs and bunnies and rodents and dogs and cats and all kinds of shit. So I don't know how they figure out that something's a man or a woman, but it basically can take your handle and go, oh my God, you're like totally a sexist. You RT more men than women. I am a sexist. I apparently RT more men than women. And my point of that is if women would give me something worth RTing, I'm sure it would be a little more balanced. So that makes me a sexist. A passive sexist at that. And Jessica Valenti, you are a douchebag at number 3. Number 2, Mark Halperin for his racist interview of Ted Cruz. It was racist, guys. As Cruz himself said, imagine if Mark had asked Obama questions about his heritage, i.e., what type of black music does he listen to? Halperin, of course, did apologize later to Cruz, and Cruz was a class act. He could have done the whole victim thing of, they're just trying to hold me down because of my Cuban heritage, and he didn't do that shit. He just said, you know what? It's cool. Moving on. I got stuff to do. He was a class act. He was a leader. He didn't play into that, and he moved on. So that makes Mark Halperin a douchebag, and it makes Cruz a leader. At number 1 is, of course, Obama. This is Obama. I love how you people, I will just copy and paste you when you do this. Yeah, Obama has like 6 O's in it. This week he blamed Fox News for the ills of this country. Yes, he did. Because, they have some power over his office. Fox is responsible for poverty, for crime, for racism. Yep, Fox News did it. I'm shocked he wasn't blaming W because he's been blaming W for everything, and now it's Fox News. So that makes him a douchebag at number 1. And he's been number 1, gosh, what has it been, almost 2 years now. Congratulations, President Obama. That's a long stretch. Now, I'm going to take a shorter break than the last one. Take a drink of water so I don't sound like a frog. And my guest, Jake Pentland, is on the line, so stay put, and we'll be right back.
We here at Politainment love to read. Well, except Paul, but, anyway. Thing is, we're all super busy, and rarely is there a moment where we can just sit down for an hour and get caught up on the book we've been wanting to read. Many of us just don't have the time. But what we do have is a smartphone, a tablet, and a subscription to Audible.com. You see, Audible.com gives us the ability to get caught up on the books we want to read, but it's the audio version that in many instances is narrated by the author. So this way we can hear a chapter 2 on the way to work, while cutting the grass, or while in the bathroom. Hey, don't act like you don't do that too. And Audible is part of Amazon, so there are hundreds of thousands of books to choose from. If we just described you, a person who loves to read and just doesn't have the time, then we want to hook you up. Go to audibletrial.com/Politainment and you get a free month trial, and that includes 1 free book. Yes, even new releases, for free. You get a 30-day free trial with no strings attached, and at the same time, you help out your friends at Politainment. Go to audibletrial.com/Politainment. Get your books on the go by going to audibletrial.com/Politainment today. Thanks.
Talking over that one for some reason. I feel like Jason and I are going to hang out and talk. I love that spot. And I like how he just says, thanks. And we're back. Thank you for letting me take a short break, guys. I'm trying not to lose my voice because I really want to talk to my guest who's been waiting patiently on the line, muted. Jake, sir, are you there?
I am there. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. It's been a long time since I've been on a show. Feels weird.
Well, it has been a long time since you've done a show. And I think that is really interesting about you as a personality. When I first met you, I muted you in social media. You knew this because I found you obnoxious. But then I realized your obnoxious was brilliance. It's masked by being obnoxious. Jake, I really want to make this about you. But I think we have to talk about who your mother is so that I can talk about and tell them what happened to your show. So who's your mom, Jake?
I have to be very careful and political in my responses as to what happened. So normally I love to be really open and honest, but, I'm going to be political. See, let's see how I do. It's very hard for me. Well, I mean political in the sense of saying something without saying anything. How they do it.
You mean you're going to cover your ass, and I don't blame you at all.
Yeah, exactly. So, I want to have a job tomorrow morning.
I would like you to have a job tomorrow morning. I would feel like shit if I got you fired. So you be political, and I'll just be a pain in your ass, and you can just laugh at me, and people will do whatever they want to do. Does that sound like a good deal?
It sounds like a deal. I'll do my best.
All right. So, Jake, I'm going to tell people who your mother is. Your mother is Roseanne Barr.
Yeah, we just lost every listener right there.
No, not at all. Here's the thing about your mom. I think her political stuff is wacky, but she's brilliant when it comes to comedy. And I know we did pull some of your show that happened when your mother called in, and we'll talk about that later. So how long did you do the podcast? How long were you on the air?
Oh, man. Well, the actual podcast was about 4 years. I started on Blog Talk, and then I went out on my own. But I did an AM show for her. I kind of filled in for her in San Bernardino, California. She had bought airtime, and it wasn't showing up, and I just always liked radio, so I asked her if I could do it, and I did that one first.
How cool!
It was cool. I did a show called The Myth of the Patriarchy with this feminist scholar who went to school. She was a feminist. She went to go study the patriarchy and how we used to worship women and all that. And then because she was an academic and really bright, she started to kind of research and going, you know what, there really isn't evidence to support this. And she wrote a fascinating book, and I loved her. We hit it off, and I had her on. And then that's where it kind of started. My mother's a feminist.
Right.
And in the good way sometimes. Sometimes she goes too far. But that got me booted off her AM show. So... She politely asked me to stop doing the show because it was not the pro-feminist agenda. So I got fired there, and then I got on Blog Talk and my show, and then you heard what happened. So yeah, I've been doing it probably about 5 years.
And you know what was interesting is I really went back and started listening to some of your shows, and I think what you do is brilliant in that you talk about important issues. But you say some funny shit, and you talk about things in a way that it's not more. You know, I hate to say this, but political radio can be really dry. We can be boring assholes. We really can be. And listening to your shows, I listened to one today. It was what was it? Liberals are retarded or something. I can't. Mental retards. I can't remember the title. It was good.
Sounds like me.
But there was a caller who called in about midget porn, and somehow. You were talking about political issues, you're talking about important stuff, but you go to the side conversation about midget porn.
Right.
I laughed my full head off listening to this woman talk about midget porn for like 15 minutes. And I think what you were doing was smart. Really smart.
No one's ever said that. I appreciate it. I thought it was smart,
I'm not just
too,
being nice to you, because I'm not nice.
Well, I appreciate that, too, because no one's ever does that either. No, it's very dangerous. You're very good, by the way. So you figured it out. But for me, when I started, I was like, there's two things why I can't do politics. One is I'm not really a member of any party. And I hate pretty much every party for certain reasons, and I like certain things. So if I was going to do political radio, it would fail right from the start because no one would be on my side. In fact, my two biggest tweets, like the most retweets and faves I got, one is like supporting the unions, and I bashed the Republicans. And then just a few weeks ago, I went after some crazy leftist bullshit that I retweeted. So my top two tweets couldn't be further apart from each other. And it's just because I don't like hypocrisy and I don't like bullshit, and I see it where I see it. So I decided early on there's no way I'm going to be able to do political radio.
Sure,
and then the other thing is I'm just so boring, and I get so boring when I talk about it. And I love midget porn. I think it's so much more interesting. So yeah, that was it. That's why I did that.
But you know what? I think you found a way of being political without having to pick a side. And I will be the first to tell you, I piss everybody off. I'm not. Yeah. I say things that make the left really mad, like threaten my life mad, and then I make the right irritated. I do that, and I think that you're going to find more and more people are feeling that way, that there is not this whole, well, I'm Republican, so I'm XYZ. There is, wow, the Republicans really pissed me off today when they did this. I think you're a little more normal than you realize. Well, normal is, relative, but you know what I mean. I'm sorry. No, you're fine. And I talk too much for my poor guests, but.
So do I. I really think everybody, like, I think if you looked at percentages, there's no study to back it up, but, I'll just make a number up because that's what a lot of people do. I'd say like 90% of people are moderate and centrist and see strengths and weaknesses in both parties. I really do think that in America. And I think you sort of have these fringe groups and extremists on both sides that get on, the news channels, they do the shows. They are more interesting to listen to because you'd rather listen to a nut job, whether you agree with them or not, than somebody in the middle going, well, let's look at this as an individual case. What does this individual story tell? Because that's boring.
It is
boring.
But I do
You'd
think
much
most
rather
people crave that. And
about, I'm sorry,
white devil Republicans, and you would much rather hear about evil, women-hating white guys. I mean that is much more interesting than saying, well, you know what, most men aren't sexist or racist regardless of color, and it's just not as much fun, is it?
It's not, and I think we're naturally wired to be sort of binary, and we need like a good and bad and black and white. We need things clear because, the world is just so amorphous and huge and really fucking terrifying, if you want to be honest. So it really helps to have someone say, this is how I feel, this is the way you should think. And it's kind of relieving in some sense because you can go, oh, cool, I can turn my brain off and listen to this person and they'll tell me what to think. And that's kind of nice and sweet in some way. But I really do think more people are like us, I really think you can see certain advantages to both parties, and it really would be a beautiful country if both sides could really talk in that space. But
we can't do that. Now, if we start talking to each other, then we'll start paying attention to the bullshit going on in D.C. They need us to hate each other. They need us to fight. They need us to do that, because if we say, hey, Jake, I know you disagree with me on X. Let's talk about Y, and if there's a compromise, God forbid. Because if we do that, then we stop fighting.
Right, and then and not only is it works for them to sort of divide and conquer, whoever them is. I hate when people do that. They, them, man, but there is somebody pulling those strings. I don't know who it is, but yeah, it suits them that we're fighting. And then just the other thing is just again, it gets boring when people have an intelligent conversation. That's why you got to throw in midget porn every once in a while.
But midget porn is good. I've never had midget porn on the show. I should bring on midget porn. Although, when I first started doing radio, I decided to do a show on sex because, they say conservatives don't like sex, we're all prudes, blah, blah, blah. So I did this whole show on sex, and I took calls. And, of course, I got trolled by some crazy guy who called me to tell me that he liked to dress up like a priest and his wife would dress up as a little boy. I kept him on the air for a good 5 minutes because I thought it was really funny. But I was being trolled, and I knew it. That was a lot of fun because, we don't do that. It's more important, we have important things to talk about, but like your midget porn, my crazy weirdo talking about dressing up like a priest, it was interesting that night. It was good radio. And sometimes you're right. I think it would have been boring if I'd said, well, it's good to have healthy sexual relationships and you should love the person you're with. You're going to tune me out right away. But
Absolutely.
I bring on crazy guy dressed like a priest, you're going to listen the whole damn hour and a half. It was fun.
It's tough. It's really tough. And then you don't want to go too far the other way. Like, you don't want to just be shocking for the sake of shocking because that gets boring.
Oh, God, yeah. Because
but again, who am I to talk about the successful recipes since I don't even have a show anymore? That's
well,
my theory. That you should mix it up.
Yeah, but that's not your fault, and I'm going to be unpolitical. Your mom hates me anyway, so that's fine. The only time I've ever talked to your mother, I wasn't very nice, so it probably was my fault, and I'll own that. But I just told her how desperate she was to be relevant, and I called her a has-been, and she said, "Better a has-been than a never was, you bitch," and that was cool. I liked that. Then she blocked me, but I don't think it's fair to say or put the blame on you in any way that you don't have a show anymore. And you can be political and say you have no comment. That's cool. But I think this is a really good opportunity. If you don't mind, can I play the little, it's like 2 minutes of when your mom called your show? Is that cool with you?
That's fine.
Okay, you're being political. I'm not. Hey, Rick, would you play that for us, please?
We do have a caller. I think it's my mother, according to the note. Jeffrey, is that my mother? I'm going to put her on. It's someone named Roseanne. I was not expecting this phone call. Is this mother?
Yes, it is your mother. Jake,
hey, what are you
need
doing?
to get off the radio. You and Butthead, Beavis and Butthead, and that idiot Eli, you guys need to stop doing radio. Seriously. You guys are disgusting and
Who's
stupid.
Butthead? Which one's Butthead?
I guess I'm Butthead.
No, she said you're the idiot.
He's
I'm
the
the idiot.
I don't know who's who, but Eli,
you
could not be more stupid. If you if you jumped off of a goddamn roof and landed on your head. Try it, and we'll see if that does make you even more stupid.
What are you?
guys are
what did I
disgusting. How gay are you guys? Like, seriously, just get together and come out of the closet with your loathing of female genitalia and all the crap you spew.
What are
Get
you
off
talking
the
about?
radio and marry each other, please.
You know, we thought about it at one point, but we simply are not homosexuals. There's no way around it.
There is no way that you guys are heterosexual with the way you loathe women, unless
I don't
you're like
loathe
stuck
women.
at an
Wait a minute.
anal stage of being 3 years old, and
Did
you're
you
playing
listen
with each
to-
other's poop.
Did you listen
Believe
to
me, both of
the
you
1
guys
minute
are
thing we
too
did?
rich and too
I'm
pampered.
going to put her on mute.
You both
Watch
need
this.
to get
This is so cool.
fired and get.
Look at that, a commuter. That's awesome.
See
Okay.
what
Cool.
real life is like, and I hope to help you do that. Eli, your father is a multi-billionaire,
That's
and
not
you're a spoiled little drugged-up son of a bitch, and you better shut your fucking mouth. And Jake, the same to you. What do you do all day? Not a goddamn thing. When was the last thing you did anything over there at that studio? Never.
Well, specifically,
You
let's
never
start
do
from
a
the beginning.
goddamn thing but sit around and
What-
bitch about women's genitalia. You guys
What
are
did you listen to
disgusting
the
and need
vagina
to get
thing?
off
Is that
the
what this
radio.
is about?
Jake, you're fired. Eli,
I'm gonna
I'm
mute
going
her.
to find your dad if he's...
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Mom. You're on mute now, so I'm going to ask you. Quit. Did you listen to our sales thing that we put on the Two Vagina Lady? Is that what this is about? She just hung up. That was surprising. I think, Eli, I think she listened to the thing we did with the woman with two vaginas. Because she obviously didn't listen to the show I did last week where I said I wasn't going to do the feminist issue since I already got thrown off the radio, and here we are on Unscripted.
And that is brilliant.
I don't know why my show wasn't more popular. That's fascinating radio, I have to say, objectively speaking.
I have listened to it 2 or 3 times, and I cackle like an idiot every time she tells you guys you should get married.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And, you know, he is my best friend. He's a great guy. You know, if we were gay, it would make perfect sense. But like I said there, it's not going to happen.
You gotta love who you love, man. And I love that you muted her. And when people in the chat are laughing their asses off because you muted her, we all like to mute our mother sometimes. So I think that was very empowering.
It was.
You know.
Okay, so here's what happened, because I got to clear this up. So
yeah, tell us
this
about
is
the
not
two
why I was
vagina
fired.
thing.
This was years
I'm really
ago.
curious about the two vagina thing.
Yeah, and it was a really funny bit. So there's this woman that was actually born with two vaginas. It really happened. It was like, you know, like, I guess it's not a hermaphrodite, but anyway, we covered the medical thing on our show, and I had made a couple comments like, does this mean she's doubly crazy now because she's twice a woman?
Yes.
And like, if she has her period, like, do you have to do like a double shotgun approach with tampons? And we just did like a 30-second bit, and that was it. And sat, and I forgot about it. And that's what set her off. But that's not why I was fired. I was fired actually over my show page tweeted Michael Moore.
Oh, shit.
And it was when he came out for American Sniper. And full disclosure, so my mom ran for president, and we did a documentary, and Michael Moore helped with the documentary.
Sure.
And, you know, that's why I'm being political, because there is work, and I do love my mom. I have the utmost respect for her. I've never said anything bad about her.
You know,
I won't
I
even
told you.
hear. But
I think
didn't
she's
like... What?
Out there, but I think she's brilliant. I think her comedy, I mean, really, but besides Joan Rivers and Lucille Ball, who is there? But your mother.
No,
so I
she's
say that
brilliant,
with respect, but that shit was crazy.
Well, she gets really mad when I talk about feminist issues, because this is a question I have for you and your audience, because I was really mad when I got fired. The show ended. I loved this show. But she kept saying, you do represent me. You're my son, and I do work for her. And the thing about social media is that it's still relatively new. And I was going to ask you about this. People that have real jobs, and then they have this sort of, you know, alternate personality online. Is I've always viewed the internet as sort of a, you know, like a venting place. You can, even if it's your name, you're still anonymous. And I've never taken anything seriously. If you ever follow my tweets or fights, I mean, I'm trolling 90% of the time. And when she was telling me, you represent me, for me to sit there and say, oh, feminists are all stupid, you know, libtards, people do see that that's Roseanne Barr's son saying that. And I think, you know, I'm a 36-year-old man, and I have a right to my own opinions, and that, you know, I was very stubborn in it every time she asked me to stop, because I felt like that is how I feel in a lot of ways. But at the end, when the show finally ended, she kept saying, you represent me, you represent me. And I think now, since I lost the show, and I haven't told anyone this except for you and a few people, but I still do a show. I do it under an alias. I'm not going to say who it is now. I've gone deep undercover. I have like 7 listeners now, it's hard adjustment because our show was.
Well, if I could tell people where they could find you, I could grow you. But you know what? I won't tell people now because I'm being political. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
and
undercover.
I don't want to. I kind of like it. It's a good adjustment. But the thing that I've learned from it is that she may actually have a point, because now that I'm not Jake Pentland, I have a different name. The show's still good, but because I'm not tied to her, there isn't really interest. And when I say something, it's like, oh, there's just another random guy on the internet saying something, and there's just another person with a podcast. So even though I was so mad at her, I kind of look at it now with a different perspective. Like, she may have a point, even if it's not fair. I do represent her, and there is sort of a responsibility to that, especially when you consider the fact that I worked for her. And the tweet to Michael Moore on my show page was, I called him a coward because he went after the American Sniper.
Yeah.
And he was doing a documentary with her at the time. So here I am going with people that are funding projects, and calling them names, even though I didn't send that tweet. It wasn't me. But that was sort of what happened. And it's just difficult because, for anybody out there, and you or anyone that works, do they have a right? Do employers really have a right to control your speech on the internet?
And
that's a question I can't really get
it's
an
interesting because what you hear a lot of happening is people being threatened, their jobs being threatened. I can tell you I have been threatened. And the bunny thing, it worked for me because, the buck teeth thing or whatever. And the rabbit has always been a way that I can connect with people without being just Sam. But there's a good point in that is Bunny also protects me to a point. And like you talking about going under, you have a lot more freedom when you're not Jake. You have a lot more freedom when you're your other account and your other, because nobody has any expectations on you and nobody's going to tie you to your mother. At the same time, though, and this is one of the reasons why when we were talking about your interview, is you should be able to be you. And I get it. I have no way of understanding what it's like to have a famous parent. But at the same time, we need to recognize that what you're doing is your own and that you have opinions that are pretty cool and you're a funny bastard on your own. So I can see where you're saying maybe I don't want to, maybe there is this tie and maybe she's right. But I'm going to tell you that I disagree with that and that I think you have every right to your opinions. And, if you say some dumb shit, she has every right to yell at you, but it does not represent her. She does not own who you are and what you do. And I'm not just being nice, I promise, because I'm not. But I really think you have something special. Listening to your shows and the stuff you did, it's kind of like, I don't want to compare you to Howard Stern, but that is the kind of formula I felt. Like there's just funny, and then there's news, and there's funny, and you do a lot of cool stuff. So I see both sides. I see that there's a freedom of not being tied to her, but I also think it shouldn't matter if you're tied to her and that you have your own opinions and you should be able to share them. And I'll get off my soapbox and you can say something about midget porn and we won't be serious anymore.
Well, the thing about midget porn, just so you know why I brought that up, is that you can't find midget on midget. No, this is true. It's very like you can when you hear midget porn, it's usually a regular sized person with, and midget's offensive. It's like the N-word. So little people is the proper term for midget, by the way. You can't find little people in the same sex scene. So that was a weird thing. Like, what, if there's this freakish fetish for this, why aren't there 2 of them? You can't find it. So we were going to produce our own. Anyway, that's why I thank you for your kind words. I definitely agree with you. I do think the worst part about being a celebrity kid is that the opinions that I have, and I did a show, I was very early pro George Zimmerman before it cracked. My mom retweeted his parents' address and got sued. We were obviously on complete opposite sides of that thing. And what happens is it does kind of look strange for her if she's sitting here taking a stance and then her oldest boy and son is taking the opposite approach, because the worst part I found, the most frustrating part, was that everybody would immediately think my opinions were just some sort of, mommy issue I wasn't dealing with, and that every sort of idea I had was just a way to get back at mommy. And that really ended up being the worst, worse than, Celebrity Kid or the fighting, being fired. Like, none of that, I can deal with all that, but the fact that my opinions were immediately equated to it's a mommy issue. Even though the Zimmerman case, I studied that right away. I wasn't one of the people that broke it necessarily, but I was Zimmerman before being pro-Zimmerman was cool. I researched it. We were pulling up Google Earth. We were reading the police report. We were listening to the 911 calls. We were studying for that show. And it was like a week after the shooting, I said, this seems justified to me. And that's because I did my homework. It's the same thing I did with Mike Brown when I was, pro Darren Wilson. I was not, and with you on the Walter Scott shooting, I think that was wrong. I shot him in the back. Like, I look at it as an individual case, and then I do my homework. So it was always really frustrating for me to really break down and really research and do a show and come on every Saturday and go, look what I discovered, look what I found out, my crack team. And then at the end, it's like, oh, you're just working out your mommy issues. That sucked.
That's bullshit, and that's not fair, because you do have your own identity, and you do have your own opinions, and I'll tell you right from the get-go that I don't do nearly the amount of work that you do for when you were doing for your show. I appreciate that, and we should talk about how cool it is that you put that much into your show, because some of us just get on here, hope we have a script we stick to, and yammer for an hour. So that is bullshit. So I guess there are two sides to that. My producer is like, we should talk to him if he needs a place to be.
I mean, that was the worst. Like, I almost got on Sideshow Network. Like, I almost got on a couple podcast networks. And because of the midget porn, I did way worse stuff. I mean, the worst thing I did, honestly, although it's one of the funniest goddamn things you've ever heard, we had Trayvon's missing phone call. I don't know if you remember the case, but he was on the phone with his friend, and then him and George got in a fight and the phone fell.
Oh, yeah.
And the evidence came out. There was nothing on it. You just hear him say, why are you following me? But we went and did a bit where you heard the entire phone call. And it was the most racist, like, it was like Amos and Andy. And I had done that whole show on, which is my stance on everything, is that I never saw that particular shooting, as racially motivated. I never did. The only sign of racism that I saw was the way in which the mainstream media was reporting it. First thing you remember is George Zimmerman was a white guy. Then it came out he was Mexican and, Dominican. I think there's black in his blood. And they buried that. And then, of course, they got the Trayvon photo. They deleted his Twitter account, which was No Nonsense Nigga. And they found a picture when he was like 13. And I started to see the news pushing this agenda. White guy shoots unarmed black teenager. And it was the news that was making this racial, because they were getting their clicks. They were getting their money when people go on the internet. They saw the fever in which people responded. So it didn't matter to them to report any facts. Just we see this time and time again. And I did this whole show about how the news is racist. And so I did the 50 minutes, and I'm like, we got to move past it. And I gave this great, like, MLK-worthy speech. And then I finish it up with the Amos and Andy phone call, because that's how I do. I have emotional problems, maybe. I don't know. But when I almost got on a podcast network, they were really seriously considering me. They're like, he's good. That was the thing they heard.
Oh, no.
And it was like literally like me going, oh, Rosie. So anyway, that fell through. But it was really some of the funniest things I've ever heard. Oh, it's horrible. I'm going to go to hell for that one.
You probably will.
But anyway, the news is racist.
It was
funny. We agree on that.
It was funny. Bring the funny. We all do things. I have said things, and I'm sure I'm going to catch flack for talking about Tony Robinson being mulatto, and that, they were really quick to jump on his whole being a black person, and that's what his life matters. And I was teasing about, well, does half of his life not matter? And so I totally get, I'm sure I'm going to get called a racist for that. But it gets tiring. It seems like every time there's got to be some kind of racist issue. And what happened with Tony was Tony got high and attacked a cop. It doesn't matter if he's black, white, purple, or green. If you attack a cop, what's going to happen to you? You're probably going to get shot.
You're going to get shot, justifiably. You get what you deserve. I mean, I'll go so far, you get what you deserve. You don't attack a cop. To call Mike Brown, for instance, unarmed when he reached into Darren Wilson's car and grabbed his gun. Once you grab a cop's gun, you are no longer unarmed.
No, and technically the guy was freaking a giant. Nobody is ever unarmed when they are built like that. He could have killed anybody. More people die from fists and feet than they do guns every year. Crazy
I know we're jumping around a little bit, but there is this man, Reverend Maupin, you need to have on your show. He is a black civil rights leader. I don't know if you know who he is. I had him on both my shows. Lovely man. He was marching at Ferguson, the whole thing, and he got in a fight with a cop on Twitter, and the cop said, you don't understand what it's like to be a cop. Why don't you come down and train with me for 24 hours? And Reverend Maupin, being a good man, said, okay, I will.
he goes to the police training, and he shoots like 2 of the people during training. And at the end of it, this is a civil rights leader in Ferguson. He's still a civil rights leader. He's left-wing and all that. But to his credit, he was like, oh, my God, I had no idea how terrifying it is to be a police officer. My life was constantly under threat. And as soon as anyone came to me or flashed anything, of course they were actors, I shot them. And so he went back to the streets and said, hey, we need to really respect police officers. You can't attack them. And you should get him, Reverend Jared Maupin.
You'll have to send me his info.
I'll make the introduction. You'll love him.
I will love him. Good. I love that. I like when I can love people because I don't like a lot of people.
I don't either.
Interesting, but yeah, it's something they don't think about, that how they are constantly in the mindset of I could get killed any minute, especially when you're looking at neighborhoods like Ferguson. Sorry, I'm going to catch hell about that, but it's reality. Some of these neighborhoods, that are more dangerous than others, and so their lives are constantly in danger. Yeah, I'd have to have him on the show. I've got like 3 minutes left, and I don't know how to tell people where they can find you. So why don't you give them your Twitter handle? And if people want to find your Deep Dark show, I might share it quietly with people. Is that cool?
Okay, I would like that. Yeah, or you can hear the old shows before I got fired. But my Twitter handle, well, it was at Jake Pentland, but then after I got fired, I became Fake Pentland.
Fake Pentland.
Political now, which is not
okay.
Me. But yeah, at Fake Pentland. And I got to throw out one more thing. You had Jessica Valenti on your douchebag list.
Oh, sure.
There is a guy, I'm sure you know him, Stephen Miller?
Yeah.
I think he's some conservative. Okay. He busted her so hard. You should have mentioned this in your top 10 list. But so her exact tweet was, the guy next to me on the subway was checking Twitter. He followed almost all the same people I do, but no women. Passive sexism is for real, right? She's spying on a guy on the subway. She had a tweet 14 months before where she said, the court ruled women on the subway have no expectation of privacy. This is what happens when your body is seen as public property. Same woman tweeted both of those. So she should have been number one, in my opinion. I hate that woman.
Are you kidding me? So she was bitching that people would look at her phone or whatever on the subway, a year ago? And now she's spying on some other guy.
No reasonable expectation of privacy, she says, as she's reading over some guy's shoulder on his phone. You gotta love it.
Oh, feminists are so stupid. I'm sorry, they just are.
I'll come back and talk feminist sometime. I can. That's my zone. I would love to when I have another job.
Feminist. I know what, I've been called a sexist so much, and what really pisses me off is I consider myself a classical feminist, and that I don't blame people for my own shit, and I am responsible for what I do, and I take credit for what I work hard on, and I already think I'm equal. I think that is what a feminist really should be. These bitches crying about stare rape and fart rape and passive sexism and all this other nonsense. I know I have like 2 minutes, but that drives me insane because that really takes away from the idea of women being equal because we become whiny bitches all the time.
I absolutely agree, and the term I came up with that you love is the victim mafia. And what it is now is feminism is not about equal rights for women anymore. It's not even about bashing men, which is what I was critical of it. It really is about leveraging faux victimization for political gain. And I find that terrifying because I can't think of anything more criminal to actual victims, especially women who are raped. I mean, the numbers, they do get raped more than we do.
Sure.
To sit there and say, I've been victimized because someone doesn't follow women on Twitter while people are being raped, I think is criminal.
And women saying, I think I've been telepathically raped by men online. I hate to think how many of men have jerked off to me because it's rape. Are you kidding me?
I do that all the time. I do it with their Abbeys.
It's like, if you don't want people to look at your picture and like you...
It's like 90% boob pictures.
Take it off the internet if you don't want people to jerk off to you. Don't be stupid. Okay, one more time on your Twitter handle.
At Fake Pentland, FAKEPENTLAND.
And where do they find your old shows? I want them to go listen.
JakePentland.com. I think they're still up.
They are. I listened
today. There's some good ones in there. We did some good shit, man. I'm really proud of it.
You should be proud of it. It's really good shit. Jake, I can't thank you enough for coming on the air and spending a half hour with me. You're a hoot. I enjoy everything you've done, and your shows are great.
Ditto.
I will talk to you soon, and I will quietly share the other show with my friends.
Thank you very much. And
you're welcome. I'm so glad you came on. You take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
when being compared to someone like his mother all the time. So on that happy note, I am done, and I did not lose my voice. Thank you, God. I thought I might. Thank you for being here again this week, guys. I love when you're here with me. I love hanging out with all of you in chat. Please stick around. Jason DeWilkins is next on According to Me. I will talk to you next week. Have a lovely weekend, and take care. Bye-bye.
Non, je ne regrette rien.